Hey there, baseball fans, and welcome to Draft HQ Live, presented by Prep Baseball Report and D1Baseball.com. I'm your host, Nathan Rohde, and joining me will be David Seifert, Shooter Hunt, Aaron Fitt, and Kendall Rogers. Tonight, the 2020 MLB Draft will play out on MLB Network and ESPN, and we'll be following along as always. But this year, you get to see our reactions and analysis in real time. As everything unfolds, we'll provide you the insight you've come to expect from PBR and D1, and we can even take your questions. Before the festivities start, let's go around the room and get some pregame thoughts from our crew. Seif, let's start with you. We can sound like a broken record saying this year is unprecedented, but there's no way around it. Instead of 40 rounds, the draft is 5. We had a month of college baseball, and many high school players didn't even see the field. So we're clearly in uncharted territory. What are some of the top effects you anticipate seeing from such a drastic change?
I think the greatest effect is going to be that the 5 rounds, I think, will be dominated by college more so than previous years. So last year there were 47 prospects taken, high school prospects taken in the top 5 rounds. The year before there were 52. Just a hunch, that number's probably be somewhere more 35, 40-ish at the top. Again, that's just a hunch. I think the first round will still stay about the same. Last year there were 10. I think the year before there were 12 preps taken in the first 30 picks. So I think the first round will stay somewhat in balance comparatively. But overall, I think that number, that 35 to 40 I'm projecting for this year in the top 5 rounds, I think most of those players, the difference between previous years will be prep pitchers, the kind of that good but not elite talent right there. So, I think that's what we're going to, the 7 to 12 names that don't sign, so to speak, or aren't drafted. I think more that good but not great prep pitcher.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, definitely be interesting to follow the dynamic of, the balance like we talk about the college versus high school and all that. But speaking of the college side, Aaron, this college class is super deep, especially when it comes to the pitching crop. It's particularly strong. What are your expectations for day one, and is there anything that you're following closely as things play out today?
Yeah, I think that's really the thing that stands out most to me about this class is just the sheer number of quality arms available, particularly compared to what we've seen in recent years. I just think, you're going to see some bats go high, in the top 10. I mean, obviously, there's a handful of, I think, guys that have separated themselves on the hitting side. But if you're looking for depth, I think the depth of this draft is in the arms. And we're going to see a whole lot of college arms on day one today, and I think really throughout the draft tomorrow as well. Because, I do think that teams are going to be looking for, some safe bets. You only have 5 picks. You want to make them count. So, I mean, yes, you're still going to shoot for upside, but I think throwing away picks potentially is even more of a danger now when you've had less time to evaluate players. And so I think that you have more of a track record evaluating college players. So I agree with David. I think that we're going to have a college-heavy draft this year. But the one thing I'm really interested to see, Nathan, is whether the guys who kind of boosted their stock in the first month of the season, whether that sticks. I mean, if you're like a Bryce Jarvis at Duke, who he's been an 88 to 91 guy for 2 years. He spent the summer trying to boost his velocity, and he came out and he was 92, 96. In the spring, 4 brilliant weeks. Is that enough to convince guys that he's a first rounder? Or on the hitting side, maybe like an Anthony Servideo at Ole Miss, a guy that never really hit for power, is kind of just a light hitting contact slap guy. First 2 years, comes out and hits some home runs in the first month. He was really one of the best players I thought in the country. I mean, he took a big step forward. Was that enough to did the scouts see what they needed to see in order to juice him up the board a little bit? That's something I'm really interested in. Is the small sample size? How heavily will that weigh?
Right. And then, you also have guys that maybe started slow that had big summers last year, like Carmen Majinski at South Carolina. So, we always talk about how do you balance, what have you done for me lately versus compiling that information over time. So this is going to be, an interesting case study and all that. But Shooter, let's move to you. Obviously tonight is about players starting their pro careers potentially, getting picked. Obviously, hopefully, they'll sign with those teams and start off in in the major league franchise, but it also has an effect on recruiting. What schools, players are you watching tonight, and to see how that affects, these programs?
Yeah, these recruiting classes that took years to put together, relationships built, can definitely get torn apart. Some of the big ones, I think Texas at the top has some big premium players who will definitely be on the board. But another thing, some draft eligible sophomores that I'm looking at. A lot of Friday night guys. You're looking at JT Ginn at Mississippi State, Cole Wilcox at Georgia, Cole Henry at LSU, and Slade Ciccone at Miami. They're almost a part of this current 2020 recruiting class, because if they come back next year, those are Friday night arms that can really get after it. But I'm sure there's a lot of recruiting coordinators who will be glued to the draft for the next 2 days and sweating it out. So hoping them the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they certainly will be glued to it. But on that as well, Kendall, not so much the recruiting class, but because of the shortened season, the NCAA granted that extra year of eligibility, which adds not only a wrinkle to the leverage for these players in signing with teams because they have that extra year. But it also adds that wrinkle to roster management. How are coaches going to react, when they get more recruits on campus than they expected, or potentially guys returning? Are there any names that you're following today and tomorrow of particular interest that, might be on that fence of whether, they're going to sign or return to school that, maybe the coaches didn't think at the beginning of the season they'd even have to, deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think Oklahoma's Dana Akers a guy to keep an eye on. I mean, he threw a no-hitter against LSU in the Shriners College Classic earlier this year. He's a guy that will probably end up going that late third, early fourth, but, he could slip a little bit as we look at this real college pitcher-heavy draft. I think Jackson Leith at Tennessee is another guy we have kind of the back end of the top 100. We were just talking about, his curveball is one of the best-rated curveballs by TrackMan. He's got electric stuff, 91, 95. He could move up, but he's also one of those guys, if he's on the back end there, he could maybe slip to a point where he may return to school. Then I think you look at a guy like Holden Powell, again, another high-quality, highly productive arm at UCLA who's at the back end of that top 100 list. Is he a guy that, wants to go back to school and take his chances next year, or is he a guy that's ready to move on and get into professional baseball? So it's going to be really, really interesting. And I think the big thing with this draft, too, is you're going to find out pretty quick which guys really want to sign because I don't think you're getting taken in the top couple of rounds if you haven't shown a willingness to sign. So it's going to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly is. Before we get into players real quick, and as we wait for things to start off with the draft, just to keep a couple housekeeping notes. All of us are watching it live on MLB Network and ESPN. We can't show you that, but we will be following along with the picks and relaying those to you. We're sure you guys have multiple screens given technology these days, but you'll get our reactions live. But speaking of the players, let's get into some of them and break them down. All signs point to the Tigers taking Spencer Torkelson at 1-1. Speaking of which, they are on the clock, a little over 3 minutes to go. Seif, what can we expect out of Spencer Torkelson? If he gets to the, when he gets to the big leagues, I guess, what kind of player is he to be considered successful and a worthy 1-1 pick?
Well, we've had this comp for several months now. I liked it 3-4 months ago when the season started, and I still like it today. Very comparable. 6'2", 225, right-handed hitter, first baseman. Torkelson played college baseball in Arizona. This guy played high school baseball in Arizona. Paul Konerko is probably the best comp. Again, body-wise, kind of where they're from. I know Torkelson's a California native originally, but, I expect Torkelson, he can hit for a high average. Konerko was a 280 career major league hitter over 16 seasons. Torkelson playing first base. He can have a nice lengthy career too over there. Konerko hit about 400 and some odd home runs, 440 I think around there. Expectation for Torkelson too. He's got that kind of power. So if you're just looking for one guy, hey, this is what he looks like, this is what he plays like, this is what he can be. I think Konerko is the dead-on comp for Torkelson.
Excellent. Interesting stuff. Aaron and Kendall, we talk about the power arms in this, and I guess, Kendall, I'll kind of kick this one to you because it's in your backyard. The pitching crop is really good, and at the top is Asa Lacy. He was a skinny kid in high school. Everybody liked him. He could command his stuff, but he didn't have that big, sexy stuff that you want to take out of a high school pitcher, so he ends up on campus at Texas A&M and College Station. What have you seen out of him in his development and his progress from then till now? I guess, Kendall, we lost your audio for a second. So, Aaron, do you want to jump in?
No, I was going to say, when you
There we
look
go.
at a guy like Lacey, he came in and his velocity was up to 93, 94 as a freshman, and even as a sophomore, he started to show improvements. But the big thing about this year with Asa Lacey is not only was he holding his velocity up to 97 well into the late part of the game, his slider had taken a big jump. I mean, his slider went from 83 to 84 to more kind of a 80, 86 to 89. And it's a filthy pitch. I mean, when you look at his fastball, his spin rate is right on track with guys like Justin Verlander and James Karinchak. That gives you an idea of how good that pitch is. His slider continues to get better. The changeup continues to get better. And he's a hard-nosed guy who's in my book, kind of an 80 on the makeup skill. So I think he's a bona fide 1 or 2 starter at the big league level in the future.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. They're in a commercial break right now, but I saw that the Tigers pick is in. So as soon as they come back from commercial break, we'll get to that. But real quick, what do you got, Shooter?
This feels like the NFL draft. We're waiting for Joe Burrow to go 1.
Yeah.
We're picking up names. We know who's going 1. We're building a case for them, but Torkelson's going 1.
And this is, this is going to be a historic pick as far as a first baseman being drafted number 1 overall, a college first baseman. I don't think this has happened before. I might have to go back and check on that.
I think the similarities that you can draw are guys like, Pat Burrell and Phil Nevin, but they played third base in college. Obviously they ended up moving off those positions. But yeah, in terms of like it being a college first baseman, I'm pretty sure this is the first time. So
and obviously to take a college first baseman number 1 overall, it's got to be a really special bat, and that's what it is. I think Seif hit on it, and I actually really like Seif's Paul Konerko comp. But I think this guy is certainly the best power bat in the draft, but I think he also has a case for being the best pure hitter in the draft. If you look at the fundamentals of his swing and his approach and the analytics, I think this guy is capable of winning big league batting titles, and I think he's capable of winning big league home run titles. Basically, I think he could be a Miguel Cabrera kind of producer. It's not easy to compare a guy to a Triple Crown winner, but if if you're going to take him 1-1, you think he's capable of leading the league in homers and potentially batting also, and I think he can.
Yeah.
The thing that's special about him too is like when you watch Torque bat, he's one of those guys that you really have to make a perfect pitch to, and if you don't make a perfect pitch, he's going to hammer it. Even when he strikes out, it still doesn't look like a bat at bat. Whereas even some of the best guys in the country, I saw Nick Gonzalez against Asa Lacey. Lacey made him look pretty bad, and so that's one special trait of Torque is that he just always you got to make perfect pitches to him to get him out. And here comes the pick.
Yeah, here we go.
Uh-oh.
Says
it is Spencer Torkelson.
Surprise, surprise.
Shock. Yeah, no surprise
do you have
there.
any thoughts on the shocking pick?
Well, we got Rody, we got that one right on the mock draft. That baby.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing too.
One for one, fellas.
I've got right here. I've got our various mock drafts from the last few weeks, so I will be, grading papers as we go along. So, obviously, I'm streaming it on my phone, so I'm a little bit behind. But yeah, no surprise here.
Let's smile and be happy for another 3 minutes because I just got an inside info. Gonzalez is speculated to go 2, so we're not getting that one right. So if that's true, we won't get that one right.
Really? Interesting.
That's the word. We'll see.
I didn't think the draft would go off kilter until 8, but if Gonzalez goes 2, things get real fun.
Well, we're trying to save money, Shooter.
Saif, you will know. I will definitely knock that pick if it's Gonzalez over Asa Lacey.
Anyone over Asa Lacey besides Spencer Torkelson, you will knock.
Exactly.
Well,
I like how you're committed, though. I like that.
Sorry, I'm just watching Torkelson get some hits.
Watching him get some hits or get tackled by some family.
Oof.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
I guess, Aaron, Kendall, you guys have seen him plenty. Like, I've heard that, he may be a better athlete than he gets credit for. Like first base, in the long run is his home, but is there any thought that, maybe trying him in like a left field, to start out to see how it works?
I mean, he played some corner outfield for Team USA, and I mean, I think he worked hard at it. Maybe got a little better out there, but he's a first baseman. I mean, uh, even when he was a freshman, he was not even a very good first baseman. He worked really hard at getting better at it.
Yeah.
I mean, the athleticism, I think it played there. I mean, certainly, Saif, when you saw him most recently, you came away pretty impressed with the defense at first base, right?
Yeah, it was. I think for me, the athlete I think you think of when you think first baseman, you think of first baseman. But he's not that guy. I think he could play left field. I mean, I love Kyle Schwarber. He was, I think, second on my draft list when I was an area scout. Kyle Freeland was first. I thought Schwarber had a chance to play the outfield, and he could barely play the outfield. I think Torkelson has a better chance to play than Schwarber. And Schwarber's doing it. I mean, he's not doing it great, but he's doing it enough. So I think he has a chance, but at the same time, why mess around? Why put him through the struggles of making the conversion? Just let him go to first base, let him rake, come on up with the Tigers. They don't have a lot of bats in their system. Let him just shoot up and just be torque. So I wouldn't move him. He has more value there, but I just leave him alone.
Yeah, you're taking one overall for one reason, so that bat can play in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to run in the left center gap. He runs into a center fielder, or he twists a knee. You're going to feel like a moron putting him out there. He's safe at first base. Just let him do his thing.
Yeah, I guess you can make the argument. It's a similar argument to, like a high school catcher being so good with the bat that you just move him, like a Bryce Harper. Like, move him because you like the bat so much. Don't slow down his development. Why mess with Torkelson's development of his bat by making him learn new positions? So, but I guess
now it's interesting they drafted him as a third baseman. Do we all think that he can do that? He's listed here as a third baseman. I don't see that.
That's a new wrinkle. He's got the arm. I will say he has the arm, and he's pretty nimble for a big, strong guy. He's pretty quick and nimble on his feet.
Yeah.
So he definitely has the
arm. I mean, he's a better athlete than he's given credit for sure. Right. But I don't see third base.
I will take the under on 0.5 career major league games at third base.
In his career?
In his career. He's a first baseman.
Interleague play, man. Maybe a DH has to play first base. They shift him over to third for a few games. I mean, Miguel Cabrera played third base in the big leagues for a little bit.
He did. Miguel Cabrera was pretty. He was a different body when he was 20 than when he was 35.
Slightly. So, but no, I do remember when he was a freshman. Hitting all those bombs, and we were talking about the defensive side for him. And it was very much, it's like, well, what's his position? Everyone's like, well, it's batter's box. Like, who cares? So it definitely sounds like
looks like we're going to get a surprise at the number 2 pick, but it's not going to be Nick Gonzalez.
Yeah, what are the Orioles going to do here? They got some rebuilding to do right now.
It sounds like they are not taking Nick Gonzalez, but it is a guy that's going to go a little higher than we had previously thought.
Potentially Bean. You think Bean could go here?
Who?
Nick Bean?
I'm going with Kjerstad.
Kjerstad?
Wow. Preston Kjerstad.
I'm not doing my texting of people tonight.
Oh, Preston Kjerstad. Whoa.
Yeah.
Kjerstad at 2?
Wow.
Good deal.
Probably an underslot deal. But I'll say this about Kjerstad, guys. I saw him at the Shriners College Classic. It seems like an eternity ago, but a few months ago, and he hit a home run to dead center at Minute Maid Park that landed on the walkway above the wall. He's got incredible raw strength. He can hit for power to all fields. He's gotten better defensively. I'm a huge Heston Kjerstad fan.
There goes our mock.
When they read the analysis by Driveline that we posted today on D1Baseball, I think maybe that changed their opinion.
That was a great piece.
Impressive piece, yeah.
Look at the Kjerstad.
It's surprising here, but I feel like I was surprised when Benintendi went that early a few years ago, and what he busted right for the bigs. That's a nice bat. Having him and Rutschman, 2 big bats at Camden Yard.
I think we can. We'll speak for pretty much anybody that evaluates and analyzes the draft that this is a surprise pick. But do we think it's a bad pick? No. Kjerstad's a really good player. We like him as a player and what he can bring. But B, we know what this means. like we saw it. Aaron, you probably remember when you and I were at Baseball America, we were shocked when Hunter Dozier went in the top 10 to the Royals, and everyone was like, well, what is going on? Well, lo and behold, several picks later when they pick again, they get Sean Manaea, who was supposed to be a top to 10 to 15 pick. So very clearly, like, we've seen it over and over since then. Like, that's what we're looking at now. Like, Kierstad is the number 2 pick. You're going to get him for a below-slot deal, and either A, somebody's going to fall naturally, or B, you're going to do some work to make sure somebody falls. They probably will have a good idea around 15 or 20 of guys that are sliding. And, then you can start forcing them down a little bit more when you pick again at 30, is it? 31?
Yeah, I think 30. Hey, 30? Seif, because so much of this draft now is accounting because your draft pool. Does this say something about the either Martin or Lacy that they want slot? They're not going to sign for anything under because they don't go here? Because I'm assuming the Orioles went in there and said, hey, Lacy, will you take this?
No, I agree. I think they just went to when they worked down their pref list and got the guy that wanted to take their money. Yeah, I think that was exactly the case. And I'm not going to go on record as saying this was a bad pick by any means because I like Kjerstad as much as the next guy, but his swing and miss rate is worrisome, especially to pick him 2 when Austin Martin is out there. Again, I'm not going on bad record as saying it was a bad pick. If they save money, they save money. They have their own plan. But I've always believed just pick the best player and sign the best player. So
but
we'll see. Time will tell.
But I think you can make a case that
Kjerstad. Go ahead.
I just think you can make a case that they took the best bat that's left. Torque was the number 1 best bat in the draft. And Martin's he's got a better hit tool, but who offers more impact? You can make a case that it's Kjerstad. I mean, if he hits 35 home runs in the big leagues and strikes out 170 times, I mean, that's the way the game has gone anyway. I think you can make a real case that there's more upside even with Kjerstad, even though he doesn't have the defensive value and the athleticism that Martin has. I actually really like this pick, and looking back at it, I'm not sure why we all didn't give Kjerstad more consideration at this point in the draft because, none of us really. I didn't think about him as a top 3 kind of pick, but why not? Really, it's the power is right there with Torque.
I would take him over Nick Gonzalez any day of the week. But the other interesting thing about Kjerstad, I was talking to Dave Van Horn a couple of years ago, and when they recruited Kjerstad, they said that he was like maybe 155 pounds. Like he was extremely skinny. Out of the Panhandle of Texas, and to see what he has done with himself physically to get to this point is incredibly impressive.
It certainly is, and I'm not gonna. So, I know people like to see the picks play out as they're announced, so I'm not gonna do what everyone refers to as woging the draft and saying. A couple minutes ahead of time, but I did get a text message. I think we might be in for another surprise here at number 3. So I think everybody's mock draft at this point is screwed.
I have heard that the Royals will not pass on Asa Lacy. So if it's not Lacy at this spot, it would be the Royals.
Hey, I wonder if the Marlins take another Vanderbilt bat, but that doesn't sound. But what Rhodey's thinking maybe Max Meyer. What do you got, Rhodes? I don't know.
I mean,
might be my guy. Hey,
Rhodey, I got to tell you, after pick 2, talking to the college fans here, if money's getting saved, those high school guys start getting a little more valuable. Every time money gets saved and those draft-eligible sophomores, their prices are high and they get closer to it with these second picks. I'm sure the Orioles are already thinking about 30. I mean, they're obviously thinking about 30 pick 2.
They've been thinking about it for weeks.
Yeah, college baseball fans, we're in for a wild ride the next 2 nights.
We've got we've got questions coming in from various social media channels, so I'll throw some out every once in a while. But we have one from a young fan here named Colin McGowan. Little inside joke for you guys. Would you say there is more upside in Kjerstad or Veen's bat? And I guess, Shooter, I'll let you start because you probably know both of them the best of our panel here. But, I mean, the question for me is, what's Kjerstad's ceiling as a pure hitter? Because I know where they stand on power.
Well, my thing, and the D1 guys, you guys can speak to this. He hit in the SEC, and he hit for power, and he has the swing and miss. But I think production in the SEC says a lot. And it's been proven especially the last 5 to 10 years, that it plays in the big leagues. So I really like Zach Veen, but the pick is in, Rody. I'm going to cut myself off here. The Marlins are up.
Oh, yeah.
It
think you're
Max Meyer. Oh, man.
Max Meyer.
Awesome.
There it is.
That is so
wow.
Well, we were close on that,
Town to
right?
South
Rod?
Beach. Let's
we had him
go.
4, he went 3.
Well, we hit in our latest mock, we had him 5. We had him 5 to the Blue Jays. That's the highest that we had him.
Okay.
And Shooter, when we did our first mock a month ago, Shooter had him 5 to the Blue Jays. So I didn't break out a red pen, but I am just marking through some mock draft selections here, which is going to be nonstop tonight. It feels like.
Hey, I never saw Meyer in person, and you guys did, but the way that when Lincecum came up, and everybody would just get excited about when Lincecum was throwing, that's kind of the vibe I got from you guys about Meyer. Like, smaller, undersized guys, throws 100. He's from Minnesota. Like, there's a lot to like about it. Is that kind of the feel you had in college?
My comp here is, and it's not exactly the same, but I mean, to me, he reminds me of Marcus Stroman. I think maybe you ding him because he's undersized, quote unquote. Certainly, when Stroman was at Duke, and even before that, when he was in high school, everyone thought, oh, this guy's a future reliever, right? He's 5'8", if you want. I think it's easy to kind of fall into that trap with Meyer too, especially when he was a freshman, and he was just electric as a closer, but he was so small at that point. Mm-hmm. He's gotten a lot stronger in the last 2 years. He's still not a huge guy, but he has added a lot of muscle, and I really like the way the arm works. And David, you saw him this spring, and he held the velocity deep into the game for you. That's the thing that stands out to me. I mean, he's like Stroman. Sure, he's not a tall guy, but he'll come at you mid to high 90s, and he's got the best slider in the draft.
Oh, that 78 grade slider. I actually saw him twice. Opening weekend down in Arizona, I was watching a game across town, and I got there for his second inning. I think he was pitching against San Diego, maybe. I'm not sure, but it was in Arizona. And sat down, and I'm like, okay, what did he touch in the first inning? Talked to some scouts around me, and they're like 98. I'm like, I missed it. The adrenaline. I'm only going to see 96. Well, 3 times in the second inning, hit 99. And then he went out by the 5th. It was opening weekend, but he was still pumping 97, 98. And then I saw him week 3 up in Minnesota, and he was just sitting on 97. A lot of 99s that day, too. So I think he went 6 or 7 that day. But, yeah, he's 6 foot, 6'1", stronger body, really flexible, really athletic, just like Lincecum. 70-80 slider. And I think a thing kind of like Reed Detmers, we'll talk about him here in a little bit, but Detmers has a really good changeup. He just never has to throw it. I think Meyer's the same way. I gave Meyer a present 60 changeup. He never has to throw it. I think he's going to have a 70 grade change once he starts having to throw it and having to work on it. He's going to have 370 pitches at least. So, yeah, I think he's a star in the making. Big Ten guy, too, so I like him even more.
Did you throw out a David Cohn when we were doing the write-ups on the reports? Was that on him?
Yeah, for the 6 foot, strong-bodied slider, Cohn had the really good slider. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
By the way, Sipe, I love Max Meyer enough to where I will not bash this pick because he went ahead of Lacey.
Yeah, you got a really sad look on your face though when Lacey didn't get taken 3 though, Kendall.
Here we go.
Sad.
Royals pick is in, and considering how things have gone so far, I don't think this will be much of a surprise.
Lacey.
He fell.
All right, Kendall's back online.
He fell all the way to 4.
Wow. You got to be pumped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of curious if the Marlins, like, what the reasoning was for taking Meyer over Lacey. Like, just in general, like, I don't have an issue with the pick. I'm just kind of curious of what they preferred there. But, I think with Lacey, you're getting a number 1 or number 2 starter at the next level, whereas, Meyer could end up being a reliever. So my guess is Meyer must be taking much less money.
Now, I was going to say what they prefer is the money side of it. So
Yes.
What I will say is I just talked about the Orioles saving some money. The Royals were potentially going to try to save money here and then play again they're at 34, I believe. They're probably using it up now. You just kind of scrap those plans Lacey's here. We're giving him money. Here you go.
Right, but which is a nice consolation prize. Like you either save money and get a high upside guy later on, or somebody big that you never expected to get falls to you, and you're like, all right, cool, I'll take that. So,
yeah. I feel like I'm counting cards here. +1 for money saved. Now it's back -1 from no money saved. So we're even right now if you're looking for high school and college guys in recruiting classes.
That's a fair point. So, but yeah, so I guess who we got on the board currently? Obviously, I guess the big one is Austin Martin, who we thought would go to. Yeah. I guess, Seif, what do you think? Going back a few years, one of the guys that I thought maybe I'm going too far out here on terms of the comp with Austin Martin, but I was thinking maybe an Anthony Rendon type. And Anthony Rendon slipped in his draft year. What year was that, Aaron? Like 11 or 12 or 10, somewhere around there. But I guess
11.
If we start to see him slip now, what's the floor?
I think you have to take him next, unless you have a pre-draft deal already done for somebody here. I think you got to take him here. You just take him.
Rody, Veen versus Martin. I would think that's a big decision going on right now.
Yeah, I would think so as well. For me, it's Martin. Like, no disrespect to Zach Veen. I love Zach Veen, but for me, Austin Martin, even at 5, is an absolute steal. We were talking about the athlete, the defensive versatility, the upside of the pure hit, and he's going to grow into some power. I saw Francisco Lindor in high school, and he was a tiny little guy, wiry athlete, and twitchy strong. But if you told me when he was in high school, this guy's going to hit 35 bombs, I would have laughed you off the field. So Austin Martin can certainly, especially the way the game is now, never mind conspiracy theories about juice balls, just the way that hitters are analyzing themselves and their approach to everything and the way that they're changing. Is there any reason to think Austin Martin can't hit 25 bombs in the big leagues?
You're throwing Austin Martin in there with Bo Bichette, Vlad Jr., Kevin Biggio. The Blue Jays are already fun. Throw Austin Martin in there, that makes them even more fun.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I liked Bo Bichette a ton in high school, and I thought he'd get a chance to play shortstop, which he has. If that guy, he's a good athlete, better than he gets credit for, but if you give him a shot at shortstop, I don't see why you don't give Austin Martin a shot at shortstop. Certainly a plus defender elsewhere, and it's not like you lose a ton of value by him not playing shortstop, but give him a shot,
I don't know that he's a plus defender anywhere right now. I think there's, Vanderbilt was kind of looking for a spot for him where he fit the best. He played some third base, he played some second, he played some center field. He's so athletic, but I actually don't think that it's yet translated into certainly high-end infield actions. I think we're still waiting on that. Ultimately, I still kind of think he's a center fielder ultimately, but maybe it's like a Ben Zobrist type without the switch hitting factor, and you slide him all over the diamond. And I do think that he has the athleticism to give you value at a variety of different positions.
I love that you worked in a Ben Zobrist reference, considering your New York Penn League list way back in 1995 or whatever that was.
And Jim Callis screwed me. I wanted to rank Zobrist #1 that year, and Callis said, "No, we're not ranking a fifth-year senior from Dallas Baptist." So I had to slide him down to 5, and guess who was #1, Rody? Ambioris Concepcion. There you go.
How'd that turn out? So we got the pick is in at the Blue Jays. You guys are a few seconds ahead of me, so you'll see it before me, but I will tell you right now we are unlikely to see a surprise here. I think what we were just talking about is going to pan out.
It's waiting right now is excruciating if your name hasn't been called, and I'm sure Martin's just itching to get his name called.
So now here's the question. Kierstad still kind of throws a wrinkle into this, and I'll continue this in a second if they go to the pick. But Kierstad throws a wrinkle in it, but if in a few picks we still see the same names that we were talking about in the top 7 to 8, they're just in a different order. I guess at this point, where do we start to see things, kind of start getting back on track? Martin isn't 2, but he's still, in the top group of that names that we've been talking about since, February.
Well, I'm hoping with the next pick, Road. I think Seattle, Emerson, Hancock. I think that makes a lot of sense at 6. I think you got to take Gonzalez pretty soon. The Pirates are at 7. I mean, I think that's where maybe get back on track, at least for a couple picks anyhow.
I mean, if Bean drops to the Padres, they got to be ecstatic about something like that.
They would be pretty ecstatic. Of course, none of us had Veen to the Padres in any of the mocks. I was close with him to the Pirates, if it gets to that, obviously. That's still to be determined.
You playing bingo with yourself over there, Rody?
A little bit. I got our sheet here. There's a lot more lines through names than there are circles. I can tell you that right now. Basically, we can show you what it looks like. So, this is why I was talking to Cyphus. We were trying to get intel for a mock draft. Like, we rack our brains, we play musical chairs with names, we text sources, we throw out theories, and then we're wrong 95% of the time.
Here we go, Rody.
Yeah. You got it?
The pick is coming in. Here we go. Austin Martin, shortstop.
There we go.
Vanderbilt.
Are we comfortable saying that that's a steal? Martin
That
at 5?
is a steal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where he fits. I mean, he's a top 5 guy, but like for Kendall and I both had Lacey ahead of Martin on our personal boards, and
number 2 is rich for him.
No, I don't think it was rich necessarily. I think he fit anywhere in the top 5 picks. I don't think it's a steal. I think it's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, well, if you look at it financially, going from 2 to 5 slot wise is about $1.6 million.
Oof.
Yeah. I hope he gets that difference because I wouldn't want to be his agent otherwise. Explain to the young man, Austin.
Yeah. Syfe, talk a little bit about Martin last year to this year, because you broke it down earlier in the season on PBR as well as D1 that he changed kind of his hand position. We've got some video playing of him right now, but that hand position changed, and you weren't a huge fan of it. I assume with his athleticism, it's something that he can revert or change again with no problems. But talk about the difference that you saw between him as a sophomore versus a junior.
I just saw what I saw opening weekend in Arizona was just a guy battling opening weekend. He also made 3 throwing errors. So I know you asked about his swing, but when he was a sophomore, it was just, to me, it was a pure stroke. It was easy. It was easy back for his load, easy through the zone. And then all of a sudden he's got a different grip on the bat, and he's really wrapping it around his head a little bit more from what I saw. He just looked like off time, out of sync. Obviously, after opening weekend, he got a lot better, put up some good numbers. So he made some adjustments. He smoothed it back out. It wasn't a major adjustment either way. It was just a little bit different than what I saw last fall when they were playing Michigan in the David Williams Classic, or when Michigan came down to Vandy. So it wasn't awful by any means, but it was certainly different.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Well, based on the intel that I have coming in, I think we're going to start getting back on track here with the mock draft and some expected picks.
You want to go full Woj so bad. I can sense it.
I guess I was ingrained in my head for a few years. Like, I worked so hard to do it, and some people liked it, some people didn't. And, a couple of years ago, I just said, all right, that's enough. Because it's highly stressful. Plus, the information is coming to me, Like, what am I going to do? So it says Mariners the pick is in. We've got a question here. Oh, Shooter. Who were you with and where were you when you were selected in the draft?
Oddly enough, I flew home from New Orleans in school to Jersey for the draft. I was just with my family. I think it was during the day that year.
That was 08?
Yeah, it was 08. Wasn't on MLB Network yet, but it was a long day.
No, that was, let me think. That was the first year it was on TV. But it was down in Orlando. But I don't remember what time they did it. But I do seem to recall you telling me the story of that even if it was on TV, you weren't watching. You were just playing basketball with some friends maybe? Or
I was trying to keep myself busy. And that's why I'm thinking about all these guys in the back half, because for lack of a better word, I was I slid there. So each pick that came by, it was like, all right, what's the next one? What's the next one? And it's not a great feeling when you're watching that happen. So it was definitely a long day. These guys, I mean, especially once you get down in the late 20s here and you go into the competitive balance round, they're hoping they're called earlier. So yeah, it was definitely a long day of waiting and taking phone calls. And I'm sure these guys are getting, will you sign for this? Just confirming things from scouts, having your agent call you. There's a lot of back and forth that goes into this. And much more work goes into it than just sitting there, which is why you have agents, why the teams have the scouts. You're gathering a ton of intel, and especially when a guy like Heston Gerstad comes off the board at 2, now it moves guys around a little bit, and every time that a pick gets thrown on a whack, you dance down. And it's similar to NFL. Like this team, I may be the second overall quarterback, but if only these two pick or this one team needs a quarterback and the next one doesn't need one for 20 picks, I slide that far down. So that's what a lot of these guys are going for right now. They're getting some calls for sure about, hey, if we give you this, will you take it? Because the teams, a lot right now is accounting. I mean, you got to know what my pool says and who can I get.
Yeah, it certainly is. What did you do after your selection?
I'm rare because I had gone down. It was kind of stressful to where, hey, will you sign for this? Everything's happening really quickly. It wasn't quite as joyous as these guys here. But I was with my family. We probably, I mean, I was in Jersey, so I definitely ate pizza that night. Probably went out and played some football. A couple buddies came over. Nothing huge. I mean, baseball guys are that way anyway.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, they're in a commercial break right now, but the pick is supposedly in, so we'll wait for them to come back and announce that. No high schoolers yet. Shooter, we saw a little bit of craziness go on. Obviously, Kierstad to the Orioles, and so the Royals jumped on Lacey. We had Veen going to the Royals. Do we think at this point that Veen is still the first high school guy to go off the board, and somebody's going to be like, well, he gets to us and we're going to take him because we didn't expect it at first?
I think so, because I had Hassel going to the Padres, but if Veen's there, I would take Veen. I just love the upside. The power's there. He's shown his ability to get the frame is already risen. Very similar in the hit tool we obviously love in Robert Hassel, and I think he will go early. But I'm looking at 6. I love Emerson Hancock. I think he's going to be a real arm in the bigs. He was great at Georgia. It stinks that they had this year cut short because they were definitely going to compete for a national title. But, I mean, if we were talking about this 8 months ago, a year ago, he could have been the number 1 pick. And to get him at 6, especially in Seattle, it will be helpful.
So ESPN's throwing up some facts on the first 5 selections. It's funny. We were talking about Spencer Torkelson being the first baseman to go number 1 overall. Now they're saying because he was drafted as a third baseman that he's the first third baseman to go since Pat Burrell. First I'm trying to think in my head real quick for that. No high school third baseman have gone number 1 overall. So they reference Pat Burrell. It's the second highest pick for Arkansas since Jeff King in 1986. King, I'm assuming, obviously number 1 pick that year. And then I saw Max Meyer. What does anybody know off the top of their head what pick Paul Molitor was? Because that's I think they made that reference with Max Meyer. Seif, you're old. You should know.
I should know. That's why I'm shaking my head. I should know that one.
So.
By the way, interesting comp. One last thought on Austin Martin. I hadn't heard this before, but I think on the MLB Network broadcast, Dan O'Dowd comped him to Mookie Betts, which I don't think it's quite that, certainly. But I don't think,
Yeah, you can draw some lines there. What do you got,
Brody? We have Emerson Hancock confirmed.
Emerson Hancock?
Yeah.
All right, we're back on track.
That's a great pick.
For now.
Great pick.
Yeah. That's good pick. That's value. We thought a year ago he looked like a 1-1 guy. So Aaron, Kendall, Emerson Hancock, what do you got?
I think it's obviously, I mean, it's a high upside guy that you're getting at number 6 here, and the way that he matured from freshman year to sophomore year was really just eye opening. I mean, he was one of the best pitchers in the country last year, and he did it in the SEC. Big, lanky, 6'4". I think Seif comped him physically to Corey Kluber, which I think is interesting. Pitches pretty comfortably in the mid 90s with some good life, especially down in the zone. And he's always had that really good feel for a changeup, but he also will mix in a slider that I think has a lot of potential. And you can dream on the slider being plus and the changeup being at least plus to better than that. So, and he's done it against the highest level of competition college baseball has to offer it, and he's done it really well. So I just think this is an easy one.
Mm-hmm.
What I loved about him
on Hancock?
Yeah, I'm with Aaron on this one. I just think when you look at him overall, I mean, he's got the size, he's got the stuff. They just showed the video of his changeup here, just a really nice pitch, and him and that combo of Cole Wilcox was going to be pretty special this season. So disappointed we didn't get to see those guys perform throughout the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Just that pitchability, and you talked about his maturity, Aaron. And I saw that this year a couple times when gives up a couple jammed hits. There's some crowding on the bases, but his ability to get out of those innings, conserve some pitches, I think that's a big reason why that's a top 10 pick. You're expecting him to be a starter in the big leagues. You're going to pay for that. And again, a year ago, this was potential number 1, 2 pick. He went into the summer as the top dog. So you're getting great value here at 6, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think we may have broken a record too, Rody. I don't think there's ever been 6 collegians picked to start a draft before. And I have a hunch we're going to see 7, but that's just a guess.
Gonzalez, are you saying Gonzalez? I would think so.
Yeah, it sounds like Gonzalez here. By the way, 4 of the top 6 picks from the SEC.
Pretty typical, though, right?
You're biased.
I mean, it's, the track record is pretty impressive for that conference year after year after year after year right now. I mean, there are some other good leagues, but just nobody comes close to the SEC when it comes to producing premium talent every single year.
Mm-hmm. So how would you compare Torkelson versus recent number 1 overall picks? Seif, I'll kick that one to you to start.
Jeez. I'm so old I lost my memory. You're going to have to give me a couple examples of recent number 1s here, Rhodes. But,
Casey Mize 2 years ago, Adley Rutschman last year.
Yeah, I mean,
Royce Lewis
in 17.
Obviously, Rutschman provides more value just being a catcher. I think he can impact the game more because he catches. Obviously, Torkelson is the better offensive player. I think if he has his best year offensively compared to Adley, Tork will do better, but Adley will have more value just because he's behind the plate for, 130, 140 games out there. As far as Mize, I think that's a tough comparison. I mean, Mize could lead a rotation, and Torkelson could lead your lineup from the 4-hole. He could anchor your lineup. So they're all fabulous 1-1s. I mean, there's no holes there. I think the book is still out on Royce Lewis. Obviously, the year before, Mickey Moniak, that book is closing on him. So obviously, Tork's a much better pick there.
Looks like we've got sorry, Seif, don't mean to interrupt you there, but it looks like we've got the Pirates pick is in. Nick Gonzalez.
7 in a row.
Hey, Seif, I'm going to keep you along the same lines, and Aaron and Kendall, you guys can answer this too. Nick Gonzalez, Nick Madrigal. Both second basemen, what do you got? Are they similar? What are they like?
I would say Madrigal, he's more of the defensive guy. He's going to be more the 60, 65 defender and the 60 base stealer and things like that. But he's not going to have the power that Gonzalez has. And Gonzalez is not real big, 5'10", 5'11", but that ball jumps off his bat and it carries. I mean, for me, the power, I'm not saying it's 30 home run power, but for a guy his size, it's real power. It jumps off the bat. It carries. It's a beautiful swing, whereas Madrigal really didn't have that pure stroke. He was more the, hey, it's scrappy. I'm going to put the ball in play. I'm going to walk. I'm going to work the count. So they're different guys. At the end of the day, I'm going to go with one that's more offensive. I think you can develop the defensive skills more than the offensive skills. Not to say all hitters are born, but hitters are pretty much born. So that's how I see the two. Madrigal, superior defender. Gonzalez, superior offensive upside.
What do you see
Yeah, I think
in
Seifert-
Gonzalez future-wise defensively?
At least average for me. I mean,
At second base?
Cape, at second base. What I saw in the Cape was a guy in pregame, fluid, athletic, thrown from all angles, either foot, just really impressive. And then the game started, and it seemed like he didn't have that advanced clock. It just seemed like his game kind of got gummy, I guess. But it was only 2 or 3 games in the Cape. I wish I could have seen him play shortstop for New Mexico State. I probably had maybe a different opinion. I heard it went well, but not great. But I will say this: 2 people to me stuck out in the Cape as just being guys that were there to get better, to improve, just by watching them stretch in the pregame or doing drill work in the pregame. One was Nick Gonzalez, and the other one was another favorite, Trey Cruz. He's more of a 3rd, 4th rounder. I'd take him 3. I think he's more 4-ish industry-wise, but I really love Gonzalez. Just his work ethic, his aptitude. I mean, the guy's a grinder. He went from nothing out of high school, hardly a scholarship offer, undrafted, and worked himself into the 7th overall pick in this draft.
Yeah, I actually saw Gonzalez at short against Texas A&M earlier this year, and he didn't have great arm strength over there, so it doesn't shock me at all to see them list him as a second baseman. I just don't think he has the arm strength and really the accuracy. The accuracy from shortstop was lacking as well that weekend. So I'm all in on the bat. He certainly needs to move over to second, though, because I don't think he's a shortstop.
I will say I had his arm in my notes, in my Cape notes. I had a 45 on his arm after infield, after 2 games of watching him, had a 45. And then they hit a ball in the right center gap. He went out to be the cutoff, and he threw a strike from short right center field with backspin, great carry to the plate, strike to the catcher. So I changed it to a 55. Now, maybe I just saw the best throw of his life, but I'm more 50-55 arm strength than 45. As far as how it plays, I saw it play on that relay, but maybe it just wasn't playing from shortstop, with the catch and the quicker release.
Yeah, I think for me the bigger question is maybe the actions than the arm strength. But I mean, I'm with you. I think it'll play just fine down the road. It just needs some refinement, some smoothing out. But he definitely got better in that regard during the course of his college career.
Yeah, and if he
is this where you kind of see Zach Veen going here to the Padres?
This is buckle up. We're about to have a ton of fun starting right now.
This is So Veen would seem like the logical pick. We had Hassel mocked to the Padres here, which is still a possibility, I think, even with Veen on the board, who we had going 4 to the Royals. But I'm seeing that the pick is in for the Padres. We'll see.
Oh man.
How soon they go to
We got to get some high school guys so you can start breaking out some high school guys.
I think this is it right here. There's so many ways.
We're here to hear you talk, not us.
Oh, man. There's so many ways they can go. This is where it's going to get real fun. Guys flying around. This is where college classes come into play because we got multiple picks from a lot of these teams. But who do we have on the board right now? So we got Veen, Hassel, obviously. I mean, Mick Abel, the top arm.
My next pick is Crochet. I'm just a big Crochet fan. But you got Crochet, you got Detmers. Yeah, I mean, those are the
Patrick
top 2
Bailey's
arms at this
available. On our board, you have Ed Howard is available.
There's definitely a lot of ways. And you said Crochet, and I think we'll talk about it when he does get taken. Because with this condensed season, he's a guy who could potentially come out of the pen for somebody. Left-hander, throws hard, has the stuff. I mean, there's a few that we'll get to potentially later on. Aaron?
Well, I'm going to actually – this is probably something I disagree with on a little bit with Seif is I think this guy is he's not as polished as like I could see Max Meyer. If you want to stick Max Meyer in the bullpen for your postseason run right now, okay. He can do it. Crochet is just he came in very raw, and he made some progress last year, but it was kind of fits and starts with his development last year. Then of course he was silent a little bit this year, and I just think he's a ways off still. I mean, certainly the upside is undeniable. It's a great body. It's a big arm. But the command piece, I think, still has quite a ways to go before it's big league caliber, even in a short stint in the bullpen.
There. Are you saying the Marlins are planning?
You can disagree with Seif all night. I love it.
Who has better control? Asa Lacy or Garrett Crochet?
I would say, without looking at the numbers, I would say Lacy. I mean, now Lacy, it's not fine command either. I think it's control over command right now, but certainly I would put it ahead of Crochet's, and I don't think it's that close.
Yeah, Aaron doesn't
Agreed.
read any of my posts, so I won't give you the answer.
No, go ahead. Give me the answer, please.
Crochet has by far better control than Lacy.
It's also worth mentioning that
I-
Crochet was hurt earlier this year.
Yeah. So I mean, are you just going off walk rate or?
Yes, correct. 2019 to 2020.
Because Lacy's walk rate last year wasn't very good, and he was a different animal.
Yeah, he
this
took
year,
a big step
you know?
forward.
So
Lacy was a different guy this year. Like his command this year was really good.
Hey, listen.
Whereas, like, last year-
the only team he pitched against was Illinois. Go line on.
Well, he made your boy Nick Gonzalez look pretty bad.
He did. I heard.
He didn't have a chance.
I heard. I wish I could have been there to see it.
Hey, I will say I last year Asa Lacy, to kind of give you an idea of what he used to be. I saw him walk the bases loaded against Arkansas last year, then strike out the side. So
Houdini.
that's what kind of guy he used to be. Yeah, exactly.
The Houdini Act. So, Padres pick is in still. It's
a good time to take-
We don't have a
Everybody's on the edge of their
we
seat.
don't have any shooter or roadie scoop on this pick. Come on, guys.
Well, I have somebody that says they think they know what it is, but I haven't. I don't have my second source, Kendall. I am a two-source guy.
It's got to
Capital
be
P.
Veen though. It has to be Veen though, right? I mean,
I-
that's
it-
makes
I'm-
sense.
Veen,
Yeah.
I mean, you would think, but I don't know that it's a slam dunk. I'm hearing other.
I think Bean makes more sense here than Abrams did last year.
Yes, I agree.
Here's the pick, Rody. Here we go. Finally,
I'm going to say not Veen.
Hassel.
We got that one right, Rody.
We got that one. We
Circle the
are
bingo.
we are 4 for 8 on the mock draft.
That's not bad. All right.
Shooter, what should we know about Robert?
But we're going to get the next one wrong because we had Kierstad.
It's a professional hitter, and I mean this is a Vanderbilt recruit, so that's one coming off the board for them, but to be expected. Rody and I guess the Padres too, were up late into the night when USA traveled over to Asia, and Robert
Yes.
Hassel almost carried them to a gold medal, but it didn't matter who he was going up against the last 3-4 years when we would see him. He hit. That's what he does. Left-handed hitter, corner profile, but it's a middle-of-the-order bat, and I think he's going to run into more power. The Padres definitely think that he's going to run into more power with this pick, obviously. But I think when we went with these picks in our expert draft, the other thing is they could save some money here too, and potentially put this on top of another pick that they have they are at 34 again. So we'll see what happens later. But I love this pick, Rody. I know you love his bat as well.
Absolutely. I mean, best pure hitter in the class. The first that I saw him was at PDP down at IMG last year. In the first day of BP, it was just a pure, smooth, effortless swing. You could just tell that, A, he was going to have a great chance to hit, but B, looking at the frame and the easiness of that swing, you're like, oh, well, he could grow into some power. He's a good athlete. I think you start him off in center field, but he may end up moving to a corner. But the bat will profile there. So I'm trying to pull it up to give proof to my Robert Hassel fandom. But last
Brody,
summer,
while you're finding it, I'll give a tidbit from a buddy who just texted me. He goes, Bob Hassel, but he did text me a couple months ago. They were showing a replay of the Little League World Series, and he was dealing on the mound. So he does have that big game experience in Williamsport. So it's good to know as well.
this is true. So
Guys-
last year, what do you got, Aaron?
Just quick question for you. He was number 14 overall on our PBR D1Baseball draft board, pick number 8. Do you think is it a little bit of a reach, or you guys feel like that's decent value there?
No, I think it's fair because I think the difference, we talk about this all the time of, you got a group of guys where the separation isn't big and then there's a gap and there's the next group of guys. I think the difference between, say, 8 or 9 on our board and 14 to 16 isn't that big of a gap. So I don't think this is a reach. It is certainly interesting that, they go Hassel over Veen. But again, when we're talking about the draft, we talk about, how the money plays into everything. And, they're going to work with that. Hassel, you probably give him a little less money than maybe a Veen. So you can play with that, which is paramount this year considering we only have 5 rounds. You can't get as creative because you can't give $1,000 to a guy in the 6th round where you can save a ton of money. So if you can shave just even a little bit off more in this draft, then, I can see why you would do it. So, but I found the tweet. So Carlos with Baseball America, he and I always go back and forth. We pick a guy for each summer. It's like, who's your guy? And we were both huge Pete Crow Armstrong fans going into the summer. So we're like, all right, he's out. My guy that I picked on July 6, 2019 was Robert Hassel. So just going to give myself a little pat on the back there.
Who was Carlos's guy?
Carlos took Kevin Parada, who I think there's an outside shot we see him go today in that competitive balance round A, but I think we could hear his name relatively early on tomorrow.
Rockies not waiting around. Here they go.
Who we got?
Rockies take Zach Veen.
There we go.
Why not? That power will play there.
Where is Spruce Creek? Because that seems like, is that close to Brandon Rogers? Because they took Brandon Rogers at 3.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So Lake Mary and Spruce Creek are not far. They're both Orlando area. What do you got, Syfe? I think.
I was just gonna say we are 4 for 9 as far as picking the team and the player, but we're 9 for 9 as far as having the top 9 guys in the top 9 spots.
I like the way you think.
Yeah, there we go.
Great spin zone.
Always positive. I like it.
Spin wins, shooter. Spin wins.
Hey, that left-handed stick's gonna play out in Colorado though.
Absolutely,
sure.
It will, and like he can hit to all fields. And shooter, like you and I have talked about, the thing that stood out for me was, he was a guy last year that was long and skinny, but everyone liked the swing. There was power projection there, but he was a perfect example of what you can do in an off season. This guy goes in and puts on 20 pounds of muscle, and he comes out in the spring and just starts annihilating baseballs. We had him at the PBR Florida preseason classic, and the biggest thing that stood out for me was, the BP. Which, a little anecdote here, the resource officer of the school we are at Vero Beach High School, tried to get us to delay BP until the buses were finished leaving because they didn't want Zach Veen hitting the buses in the parking lot in right field as they were leaving the school. So he's got tremendous power. The BP stands out. It goes to all fields. He can work the middle. He's got that barrel control so you can hit for average too. But the thing that really stood out for me was the games that we matched him up against. He had 2 arms that he had to face, both that were up to 95. That dude was not scared. He was taking man hacks against 95, not backing down. He didn't square the ball up. He didn't have big hits against those guys, but he was not in the least bit intimidated, and that's what really stood out for me.
Yeah, and also a Florida recruit, Hassel, Vanderbilt recruit, so a couple more SEC guys, which I'd expect to see a couple more at least. Coming off the board from recruiting classes, but that I can't get over. I mean, the Rockies obviously had him high on their board, potentially 1 with how quick they got that pick in there. Probably couldn't wait to get Zach Veen's name to the board. So, but 10 here, we got the Angels coming up.
It looks like the Angels are going to go with a high school player here.
Really?
Ooh,
Our top ranked high school guy is Howard. So
I mean, Howard is shortstop, Mick Abel, big time right-handed arm.
those are top 2. Yeah.
I have a Phillies fan sitting next to me that hopes Ed Howard gets to them, and she's like, no, don't take him. We have Colton Provey, who's our state director in Tennessee, chiming in with a comment that Hassel is the first position player from Tennessee taken in the first round in the last 40 years.
Wow.
How about that?
Yeah. So.
How do you guys feel about a Cody Bellinger comp for Veen?
I think it's fair offensively. I think Veen's he's a fine athlete. I don't think he's a bad athlete by any stretch. I think Bellinger's Bellinger's a better athlete for me, a little bit more like elasticity, a little more twitch. Let's go with that. In Bellinger. Bellinger's played some center field in the big leagues and played it fairly well. I think Veen starts out there, but I think ultimately Veen's a corner guy. But offensively, I think it's a fair comp.
Brody, would you say, though, at the same age that Veen is projected for more power than Bellinger was at the for power at the same age?
Bellinger was a 4th rounder out of high school in an absolute beanpole. Like, he was super, super skinny. And Veen is physically further than Bellinger was at the same stage. I don't know what Bellinger checks in at now, weight-wise. He's obviously lean and athletic now. I'm sure he's not as skinny as he was when he was 17, 18 years old. But Veen, at the same stage, is certainly more advanced physically, and yes, at the same stage, projects for more power.
That's a nice pickup.
Yeah, look at the Angels pick is in. I'm hearing 2 different things on the Angels right now, so I have no idea what to expect here.
I don't think any of us do. For what it's worth, we mocked Reed Detmers to the Angels in the last 2 mocks, so that was this week.
Well,
and then the one we did a month ago, I said Garrett Mitchell, Seif said Reed Detmers, and
Detmers.
Shooter said Garrett Crochet.
Detmers.
It's Detmers? We're 5 for 10,
that,
guys.
Y'all nailed that one.
Well, that pick
5 or 10
makes a lot of sense. I mean, they have bats, right? They have Adele on the cusp. They have Trout. They have bats. Otani's back. So you get an arm, get a quick mover. They have no arms. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries there the last few years, but you get a quick moving arm. He could be there in a year and a half, 2 years at the most. It's a really good pick.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing about Detmers, too, is like he's such a sure thing. He's just one of those guys that is one of those steady Eddie kind of prospects that what you see is what you get. You know, I look back at that video from Wake Forest earlier this year when that curveball was just absolutely nasty. He's just a terrific pitcher. That curveball, the fastball. I love the guy. Like never too high or too low. I'm all in on him.
Fitty, how would you compare him to Bren McKay? I wasn't doing the national stuff when McKay was at Louisville, but I've heard those two. It's an easy comp, but I've heard that time and time again.
Yeah, it's a comp that I've made repeatedly. I just think it's actually just about perfect. Very similar physically, athletically. I think the stuff is even quite similar. I mean, you're talking about 89, 92 fastball, maybe bump a little more than that. Maybe you'll see a 4 or something on a good day. But it's a big downer curveball. His is a little slower than McKay's was, but he's got outstanding feel for it. The look, the slot, I just think the whole thing is pretty similar. And even athletically, I mean, neither of those guys are really twitchy, but they just have outstanding feel for pitching, and they can dominate you with those 2 pitches. Now, I saw Detmers in the fall had really made some progress with the changeup too. I don't think he used it much when I saw him opening night down there in Oxford, but it's in there, So I mean, I think that's going to be a pitch for him as well. But at this level, much like McKay, he mostly has been able to just dominate with 2 pitches.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Seif? Go back to when you were an area scout, because Detmers, if I remember correctly, he was a high school guy your final year as an area scout. Is that right?
He was a high school guy. My first year as a cross-checker.
First year as a cross-checker. So
the first time I ever saw. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think the book on him at the time was, everybody liked him. What you saw is what you got. He was durable, left-hander. He could spin it. On a good day, he'd be touching into those low 90s. So I think he's a good example of a high floor guy at a high school where you're like, you know what, we like him, but it's moderate projection, so we're going to let him go prove it for 3 years in college, and he did just that.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, people liked him and would have taken him higher than, I think, 37th round. But, I mean, he was going to Louisville. I forget what the bonus demand was, what have you. But the first time I ever saw him was really just down the street from my house. He was thrown at a high school summer game before his senior year. Went and saw him, liked the breaking ball, liked his ability just to pitch. He was only 16 or 17 then. I think he was 16 then because he has like an August birthday. So he's still I think he's still 20 years old right now. But, I really liked him. When I saw him, I think I was the area scout, and then that fall I got the promotion, turned it over to the new area scout. Unfortunately, the new guy didn't turn him in to be cross-checked that spring, and so I never saw. Well, actually, the bottom four guys, three of the bottom four guys on that list were Detmers, Bobby Miller, and Dalton Varsho. And Varsho was a junior at Milwaukee, so that was the bottom three of the bottom four guys on the list. So it was tough cross-checking that spring.
Kendall and Aaron, can you guys throw out a comparison in terms of who's the last college guy that we saw with a curveball like Detmers?
Well, I think the interesting thing about it is it's not like your power curveball. I mean, you don't see a lot of guys with a kind of 71 to 75 mile an hour curveball that is regarded as a better than average pitch. I mean, to me, it's almost like a I don't know, like a Zito or a Kershaw kind of a big old yacker curveball, as opposed to like your as opposed to but those guys they were kind of the proof that you don't need to have a power hammer in the low 80s to have a really good effective curveball, especially if you're left-handed and you have angle and you have that feel for it. So to me, that's kind of more the template for what he does.
Hey, Fiddy, I had a question for you. About 10 minutes before we sat down to start this, I saw a tweet from TrackMan analyzing all the data, etc. They didn't have Reed Detmers in the top 5 curveballs in the country of this year's draft eligible, but they had Logan Allen, who we also love Logan Allen, but I've never seen a top 5 curveball out of him, whereas I have Detmers. I wonder, have you seen something differently out of Logan Allen? I know we're talking about Reed Detmers here, but Logan Allen, I'm trying to make sense of no Detmers but Allen.
Yeah, that surprised me too, Saif. It really did. And, and especially, I know they're going just based off of the TrackMan metrics there, but not necessarily taking into consideration the way it plays. But, I mean, Detmers, he's got a high spin rate on that thing too. I mean, if I recall, I saw like 2,800, 2,900 RPM in the fall on that curveball. It's not always there. But he'll show it to you. He'll show you that big tight rotation. Maybe I don't know if they dock him because of the lack of velocity on it. I don't know. I mean, that just surprised me. That surprised me a little bit.
That's a good point. Yeah, because it's more 73-ish than where you really want it. Where you want a 76, 77 type of thing. But what sets Detmers apart though is he knows how to throw the fastball up here and then break the breaker below the barrel. But then he can also swap his fastball at the knees too. So it's kind of like Detmers is here. He's all over the place, and he knows where he's going. So he knows how to work off the breaker.
Yeah, and interesting, you guys mentioned Detmers and Logan Allen with TrackMan. I had a conversation with Zach Day of TrackMan where he broke down pitching data and basically put together a list of guys that stood out for their data, and he ranked them 1 through 20, and it was purely off data. And he when we talked about it on the podcast, he was like, look, I don't know a certain background on these guys, I didn't dive into that, I'm just looking at the metrics here. And one of the points that we talked about was he had Detmers and Logan Allen back to back based on the TrackMan data. So he thought that he likes Detmers, but he also thought that Logan Allen was based on that information was being a little bit undervalued.
Well, that's good to know. I just always had a gut. Yeah, that's good to know. I always had a good gut feel on both these guys. I mean, they're both, I think, they're big league pitchers. And when I was doing that deep dive, when I compared them on tail of the tape, I really dove into the college pitchability lefties historically. And those guys, that class of pitchers really holds their walk rates, their strikeout rates, their hits per 9. They really hold those rates throughout the minor leagues even into the major leagues. So more so than other groups type of pitcher. So I really like them both. But Detmers, yeah, he's going to move quick to the big leagues, I think, and be there in no time. I really like that pick. Really good pick.
Has got another Detmers brother committed to them a couple years younger. So potential to reload with another Detmers in a few years. Rody, he's a few years away from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure he is. We've got a couple comments coming in here and questions. We have one. I will not reveal this person's name on air, but Shooter, I'll tell you who it is later. But he says, none of these guys have as good of a curveball as Shooter Hunt did. And then our Phil Haig down in Texas wants to know, Kraft or no, Shooter?
What's that?
Kraft or no? What are you sipping on?
Oh, no. Spindrift. Maybe once we get to the competitive balance period, we switch over to the microbrew.
I might need it a little
Coach
before
Haig
that.
asking all the important questions for us.
Oh yeah,
and
why
Coach
not?
Haig should know I'd be sipping on Shiner if I got to that point.
Here comes the pick, and
White
it's
Sox are
Garrett
in?
Crochet from Tennessee.
Garrett
Yeah,
Crochet to the White Sox?
Good work, Rody.
Dude, we're killing it.
Cruising. Yeah, cruising.
Crochet
Crochet
posted a
cheering in the
video,
press
by the
box.
way, a couple of weeks ago. Crochet posted a video a couple of weeks ago where he's hitting triple digits in a bullpen session during the shutdown. I thought that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that's why he jumped so much? Because he only made one appearance in the spring, as we mentioned. He was
Against Wright State
up a little bit. Yeah, but it seemed like he's one of those guys that, as the off season, if you will, wore on, his stock just went up and up. And Saif, I know you were on this guy. How much do you think that played into it? The bullpen videos or whatever else.
I'm ignorant of actually those bullpen videos. I saw him the first time at Ole Miss's freshman year, and I put him in as a first rounder. That was in 2018, 2017. Anyway, his freshman year, 2018. I put him in as a potential first rounder there. So first time I liked him, I loved him. I would have taken him higher in this draft, but then again, I haven't seen every one of these guys, especially the high school guys, or a good look this spring. But I'm a big Garrett Crochet fan, and I know sometimes he gets dinged maybe for his makeup, but I'll tell you what, when that guy takes a pitching rubber, he thinks like a big leaguer, he acts like a big leaguer. He's going to be a really good big leaguer.
Mm-hmm.
They're showing Crochet next to Chris Sale on MLB Network. Cypher, are you on board with that?
I think they're very similar. Body types, long and lanky. Obviously, Sale's got the super slider. Crochet has a real good feel for his slider, real good feel for his changeup. It's just not as big, not as big as Nasty. But he's a high spin rate guy too. He's athletic. He's changed delivery. I saw some video from his Wright State start, and he's really using his legs a lot more now than he was last spring. So the guy has aptitude for making adjustments. And I think he's a guy that even Driveline did a anatomy of a pitcher, and there's some really good changes he can make. And they're nothing simple, but he's got aptitude, he's got athleticism. If he can't do it, few probably can.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth mentioning.
You definitely like
that. Bullpen.
Sorry, go ahead, Kendall.
No, I was going to say it's worth mentioning. Aaron and I discussed that bullpen. That was the first thing MLB Network showed was the bullpen with him touching 100. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I was going to kick it to you, Saif, before Kendall asked you, White Sox, when you and I were doing the mock, and we're like, do we think Crochet to the White Sox? You're like, well, Chris Sale, it fits, and sure enough.
Well, I mentioned in something earlier too. I mean, the White Sox took Sale, and tell me if I'm wrong, but they brought him up towards the end of his first year and put him in the pen.
Mm-hmm.
What? And I thought maybe it's not the White Sox. Maybe they do contend. Anybody can contend if it's a 50-game season. Let's face it, any team can pretty much contend, right? I mean, maybe not Baltimore or Detroit, but there's going to be a lot more contenders to get to the playoffs this year than ever before. So why couldn't you do the same thing with Garrett Crochet that you did with Chris Sale?
Yeah,
I mean, he's that guy, right? I think Clayton Beater is going to go fairly high to a club here too for that reason. It's going to be a playoff club, maybe like the Yankees or the Dodgers or something like that. But I think Burl Caraway from DBU is kind of that guy too. I think clubs are going to start thinking about the playoffs this year because anything can happen and go get some pen arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw Sale twice that year. Aaron, you might remember, we went down to Campbell to see him. And he actually got touched up a little bit later that outing, but we all walked away like, holy cow, that's really good. I then saw him again that summer come out of the bullpen for the White Sox when I went up for the Under Armour game. We went to a White Sox game, and he came out of the pen in that game. So it's the only time I've ever seen a guy twice in 1 year, once in college and in the big leagues. It's hard to do.
Yeah, and I will say that I think Crochet is still just scratching the surface. I remember in the fall, Tony Vitello told me this guy was, not from a big high school program, is a small town kid, and he was still kind of in the early growth stages of his development. And and last year he really didn't even, his changeup wasn't a factor. And he worked hard on that in the off season and in the fall, and again, we didn't really get to see him this spring because he only had the one appearance and it was such a short season. But supposedly his feel for that pitch really took a big step forward.
What we got?
Austin Hendrick.
Wow, to the Reds. Austin Hendrick. Okay. That's
a nice pick.
Shooter. That bat will play in Great American Ballpark.
Yeah, that's a big bat. That's a Mississippi State recruit. I mean, he's been famous since he was a freshman, hitting home runs. I mean, the bat's loud, Rody. There's some thunder in the bat from the left side. Those wrists just really work. They're expecting power, and obviously plays in that park.
Yeah, I think I'm checking right now. I'm pulling it up. When we did our experts draft, what do we got? Oh no, sorry. I was thinking of a different left-handed back. I took Soderstrom in the small ballpark, but Austin Hendrick, it plays. That bat will play there. I think he'll hit for average because of the quickness of the hands, the ability to go the other way. That was one thing that I learned early on in my career of covering baseball like this. I heard from a scouting director said, when you're looking at the high school hitters and you want to understand like who has a chance to be a good hitter, look at the guys that can go the other way. And one of the guys early on that I remember being able to do that was Bryce Harper. Being able to go in that left center gap with ease, and not only with ease but with strength, and actually driving the ball, not just looping it in there. So Derek Fisher was a guy like that. Austin Hendrick is that kind of guy. If guys are gonna try to pitch him away, he's gonna sit back and he's gonna square it up and go to the left center gap easily. I mean, I've seen him hit home runs to that side. So the question for him is the adjustment that he's gonna make in pro ball. We saw him really good as an underclassman, and then last summer he made a change in his swing. He had a really exaggerated leg kick. The Hancock was like exaggerated as well. There was some waggle in there. He toned that down last summer. I'm sure somebody maybe got in his head, said, that's not going to play at the next level. And he showed some swing and miss last summer, and then he didn't get to really prove things this spring because of obviously the season being canceled. But going forward, to see him make that adjustment, I think will be key. But the strength and the quickness in those hands and forearms, I think, is going to allow him to make those adjustments.
Yeah, it's a carrying tool, and that power projection is real there. So an impact big leaguer from the left side, the potential to get that at pick 12 here. Just one thing to note, that we had Mississippi State and Vanderbilt both in the top 10 kind of sweating out the draft. Both Hassel and Hendrick were guys that I expected to get drafted in the first round and signed. So not huge, no surprise to those programs right now. Same with Bean in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those are the ones that, you kind of expect, and it's, icing on the cake if for whatever reason something crazy happens and, they fall and they end up on campus. It's, some of those schools you talked about, like UCLA. Soderstrom hasn't gone yet. Fully expect him to go in the first round. UCLA's, not really expecting to get him. But, Kyle Harrison, maybe we're on the fence about him, seeing where he goes, how signable he is. If UCLA gets him, that would be an absolute coup. But then, like in your article, you said a team like Texas, they're probably not expecting to get a Jared Kelly. But if Tanner Witt or Jared Jones, those guys fall enough, then those are the types where that kind of tips the scales when it comes to those recruiting classes.
Well, what's funny is Jared Kelly's one that I actually think amongst those five that I talked about at UT, they have potential to get. Because if he falls far enough down here in the first round, this is a kid who's one of, if not the top high school arm in this class. He gets to campus 3 years, moves into the top 10 with a good showing. So that'll be intriguing for him. But Hendrick here, again, Ed Howard's still on the board, the top shortstop in the class. We're starting to get into the middle part of the first round with the top high school shortstop still on the board, which doesn't happen all that often. The top arms in high school probably going to start coming off here soon, do you think?
I would think so. I think some of the top arms in high school we might start seeing. I still think, Soderstrom, Pete Crow Armstrong, those guys are definitely in play. going into the draft and trying to, getting information for the mock draft. I heard Pete Crow Armstrong as high as 8 or 9. I think the floor is kind of the end of the teens, so he's in play here. Soderstrom, we heard, kind of in this area, so I would expect him to be in play. But yeah, Mick Abel, Jared Kelly, those guys certainly could be hearing their names soon. Just a quick check into the PBR draft board, the best available. Right now, the best available prospect is number 8, Ed Howard. And then number 10 is Mick Abel. The top college guy currently available is Garrett Mitchell out of UCLA. So, and then after that, we have Pat Bailey and Tyler Soderstrom. So those are the top 5 best available right now, according to the PBR draft board.
I'd be surprised if.
So that's kind of a bump. Some
that,
guys down a little bit. What's that?
What were you saying?
I said we had Hendrick at 21, so we kind of moved up for this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's any chance that he took a haircut here, where I think slot's about 4.3?
Yeah. I think you get him under slot there for sure. Reds, I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but I'm not sure, what their bonus pool is. If off the top of my head, I think it's more middle of the road, so you can save some money here and, maybe get a little bit more upside than you expected with an average bonus pool. So.
Rody, the Reds are 11th overall at 8.5 million. So
11th overall. Okay, so a little higher.
Bottom of the top third, I guess.
Do they have an extra pick anywhere, or is it just because
they do at 65?
Oh, okay.
They'll pick at 65.
All right, so yeah, that gives them a little extra money. So the Giants' pick is in. I don't know how soon they're going to it because, as we've seen, the pick can be in. We can still wait a few more minutes.
Here we go, Rody.
You got it. They're coming to the. What do you got, Aaron?
I would just say I'd be surprised if Patrick Bailey slips too much further, you guys.
Patrick Bailey, good job, Aaron.
Patrick Bailey. There we go. NC State. So I talked to a scout. I think like last summer or maybe in the fall when, after Pat Bailey had, his really good freshman and sophomore years at NC State. And he said Patrick Bailey was a lesson for him in that if he felt like the only thing preventing a high school guy from hitting was just purely strength, he liked everything else. It's just, he's just weak right now because he's in high school. He's like, then I'm in. Because if I think we can add strength to this guy and that's all he needs to be a hitter, then take him. Because now he's looking at Patrick Bailey and, maybe you could have had him for less than what you're going to get him now. So he came on to campus in Raleigh, Aaron, like a firestorm.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it was impressive to see the way, the way he developed that first fall as a freshman. And I don't think anyone expected him to hit for the kind of power right away that he did. And this is a guy that I just think it's kind of an easy pick. He's a big-bodied switch hitting catcher with power. It's not like the most fluid, textbook swing. But I just think at a premium position, he defends well, he throws well enough. It's not anything super plus. But it's to me, it's almost like a Jason Varitek kind of a package. Varitek didn't have a plus arm. You grade him out across the board, even though he had a great college career. I don't think you necessarily would put a plus on any tool for Varitek. I kind of see Bailey like that. I see some 50s, some 55s, maybe a 45 here or there that's going to play. But I just think it all adds up to a guy that's going to have a long career as a big league catcher and maybe a chance to be an all-star kind of a player.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you guys this? Didn't the Giants take Joey Bart? How does that play into deciding?
You don't draft for need.
Well, tell me more about that.
So you don't draft for need in baseball, based on your major league or even your minor league roster, because, obviously this year's a little different because we don't know exactly what's going to happen with a minor league season. There probably isn't going to be one. So maybe next year you're probably not going to have Patrick Bailey and Joey Bart at the same levels playing. So that's not an issue. The only time that it becomes an issue is when they're both big league ready. And at that point, if they're both good enough to be starters in the big leagues, and this is talking about any time, any position, not just the Giants with having 2 premium catchers here, that's a good problem to have because now one of them becomes, maybe trade bait. You can package him, Patrick Bailey or Joey Bart in a trade with something that you actually do need at the big league level to, compete to get into the playoffs or something like that. So you never draft for need in baseball because you're so far away from the show. Like, this isn't football or basketball where you're in the next year or maybe 2 years down the line where you're a regular. It's going to be a few years. So what's wrong with having two top of the line premium defensive and, offensive catchers? They both can do both in your system. I mean, it's a good problem to have.
Absolutely. I wonder if they're going to keep both of them, and instead of losing Buster Posey and getting them tired, they'll just go back to back, just switch games in the big leagues. Catcher first base, catcher first base.
You could argue for that as well if they're both big league ready at the same time, and alternate them. Jumping back for a second to the White Sox pick, we got a question coming in here, and Seif, I'll let you did kind of touch on this, but the question is. He says, I'm a huge White Sox fan. What can you tell me about Garrett Crochet as far as his MLB readiness? I understand he had minimum starts in college.
Yeah, I think we did touch on that earlier. I mean, I think he's a guy. Now, there's no minor league season, but from what I understand, if they have a major league season, you have the taxi squad, you'll have expanded rosters, you'll probably have some type of extended spring, whatever shakes out. But Crochet, get him in shape. I don't see any reason on an expanded roster, 28, 30 guys, whatever it may be at the major league level, why he couldn't just go pitch out of your bullpen from day one. I really think that much of him, because if we're going to give guys like Bryce Jarvis credit and Asa Lacy credit and all those guys that really up their game, velocity, slider, pick a weapon, and I know it was only 3 1/3 innings in the third weekend of the college season, or fourth weekend of the college season against Wright State in his first outing, but he was pumping 99, sitting 96, 97. I mean, that's a different guy too than he was as a sophomore. Now, he was good as a sophomore, but that's a different guy, and that stuff would play in the major league bullpen right away. So, not to get too excited, but I think you could, again, in a normal season, normal circumstances, he could be that Chris Sale guy who you drafted in June, signed, 30, 40 innings in the minor leagues, put him in the major leagues for 10 innings his first year as a pro. So I don't know if that answers the question better or not, but that's kind of what I see from Garrett Crochet.
Mm-hmm.
He's just going to overpower left-handed. He's just going to overpower left-handed hitters.
Yeah. The Rangers pick is in. Seif, you and I in gathering our intel. What do you got? Something, Kendall?
I would keep an eye on Mississippi State here.
Ooh.
Oh, are you going Foscue? We had Hendrick, but we.
Well, here we go. Rob Manfred is going to the podium.
Foscue.
Justin Foscue.
Foscue. Well, Seif, you and I, we had gathered intel and we were leaning towards a bat, so we went with Austin Hendrick, but he's obviously off the board. We had Foscue. Where did we have him in the comp? Oh, we had him going to the Giants, so we were one pick off. We get a half a point for that.
I'll tell you what, I've seen Foscue plenty of times, and man, he's a really good defender at second. A couple of times I saw him last year. He showed kind of surprising range. The thing I like about him, though, he's a really smart hitter, and he's a guy that at second can hit with a lot of power. He had 14 home runs, 60 RBIs last year for Mississippi State. He has got it all, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna let Shooter go ahead and jump in here and talk, because Shooter. I mean, you've said it for a while. Outside of Torkelson, you felt like Foscue is the best college hitter.
Yeah, I thought he was the next best college hitter. And for me, as being a former pitcher, just his takes, the way he sees the ball. I think the power is going to come. Seif did a great job breaking down he and Westberg, the up the middle there at Mississippi State. But that Paul DeYoung comp was really good for Foscue. I think the power is going to come. If he goes over to third base, if he's a third baseman, we're talking about him potentially as a top 10 pick if you're looking at the profile. But the way he was able to hit, and I think obviously Christian Chamberlain's going to get picked soon or at some point early out of Oregon State, and he was not scared of Christian Chamberlain. He must have struck out 14 or 15 at Dudy Noble early on in the season this year, but Foscue was not fazed, and he's gone up against the big arms in the SEC and is not back down. He's hit there. He's got plate discipline. The power's there. I think he's going to be an excellent pro.
Mm-hmm.
for
We got
me,
Aaron.
and I like the DeYoung comp, but I see some Justin Turner here, and if you think back, I mean, Turner was a guy that at the time was not valued that highly out of college. He was a seventh round pick, I think, as a senior sign in 2006 out of Fullerton. And it took him some time to kind of figure it out. But once he did figure it out, I mean, it's a second base, third baseman who, is a 300 hitter and 25 home run a year kind of guy. Physically kind of similar. I mean, makeup wise, I see some similarity. I think that's what he is. I think he's an offensive, second, third baseman who can really hit for average and is going to hit some, 20, 25 home runs also.
It's worth mentioning, guys, that Foskew's the Mississippi State player to go the highest in the draft since 2013 when Hunter Renfroe went 13th overall.
Ooh, wow. Interesting.
And this is another one of those guys that climbed the boards a lot this spring. I mean, I don't think anyone coming into the year had Justin Foscue as a likely top 15 pick. And it's not the sexiest tools. I mean, I've always liked him and always thought he could hit. But I remember even week 2 this season, I was in Starkville and watched him, and I wrote him up, and I'm like, well, okay, it's a second baseman who hits for average. I mean, what is he? I mean, it's kind of traditionally more of like is he a third rounder kind of a profile? And then, I talked to Seif about it. I was like, I think he could go better than that. I was like, you might be onto something here. I do think that the game has changed in such a way that these offensive, second base types are more valued than they used to be. And even if maybe your tools don't leap off the page, the approach, I think the analytics, people probably really like him because of the way he controls the zone and his discipline. And he's a guy that really shot up, but still, I mean, if you would have told me 3 months ago that he was going to go to the top 15 picks, I think I would have been surprised by that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Looking at the mock draft real quick, the 3 guys that have not been taken that were in the top 20, Ed Howard, Tyler Soderstrom, and Mick Abel, and, of course, Jared Mitchell, we had going 18th to Diamondbacks. Those are the next 4 guys on the list.
Ooh, the Phillies are up.
Mm-hmm. Phillies are up. So I've got.
Are you guys feeling Ed Howard here?
You
got Ed Howard going to the Phillies. Y'all had Ed Howard going to the Phillies at 15. Were you pretty confident on that one?
No, that one was not. I mean, obviously, you guys know how it gets as you get further down. It becomes kind of guesswork based on history. And Ed Howard, we like him. He's a premium athlete. There's some questions about the bat. We feel like, I personally feel like that there's enough life in the hands and the bat that he will hit. But he's a premium defender. Premium athlete, and that premium athlete part is what kind of made me say, all right, you know what, I'm going to stick him with the Phillies, because they've kind of jumped on that type of guy. And I mean, we've got a guy on the screen here that worked for the Phillies. Am I wrong? Seif?
No, I think he may have fit their philosophy 6-7 years ago as opposed to recently. Recently they've been going for the college bats from a major conference. But I mean, right now the best guys on the board are Howard, Abel, and for them, I think Soderstrom. We have Soderstrom going next to the Cubs, but I think they do like bats. They select bats. Their bats are lower risk than obviously arms. So I think Howard makes sense here, but if they just want the bat, I think they go Soderstrom. So pretty soon here, boys, we're going to have to convene and talk about our pick for our simul draft.
Oh, yes. So I didn't get a chance to talk about that. I didn't get a chance to talk about that in the intro.
I'm glad Kendall's keeping our best available here too, because we're going to need that here in about 10 minutes. So
I've got it.
Put the caps
I got you guys covered.
Put the caps on, boys.
What did you guys pick?
We assigned ourselves the first year we did it. We gave ourselves the 15th bonus pool. Last year we gave ourselves the 10th. This year we gave ourselves the 20th. So the 20th bonus pool equates to following the Cubs. So every pick we follow the Cubs. So we're basically pick 16B this year. So 2 more picks.
Here we go. Phillies are in.
Here we go. I know who it is.
And we got Mick Abel, Jesuit High School, Portland, Oregon.
Wow, that one. That obviously it's a great pick. We have them ranked high, great pick, but I would not have ever guessed they'd go with a high school righty. But good for them. Talented guy. Nice pick.
Shooter, you have a long track record with Abel being in Portland. You've seen him quite a bit. I guess talk about from the first time you saw him to kind of, seeing him last year, obviously you didn't get to see him really this spring, but you have reports and video on him. What have you seen in his progress?
Yeah, it started off as obviously a freshman, sophomore, long frame kid, 6'5", still growing into adding some strength to now where that strength's starting to come in, but the easiness of the delivery. I've kind of comped it to, it's like putting A.J. Burnett and Mark Pryor together, like that kind of stuff where it's electric out of the arm, but it comes out so easy, and the just the delivery is so polished and effortless. There were some reports he was up over 99 recently in some bullpens. But the slider can be real sharp. It's come along, especially over the last, I think that's probably the biggest thing that he's made the jumps with is the slider and its consistency into becoming a swing and miss type pitch. But it's a premium frontline starter in the making, and that's obviously why the Phillies took him here at 15.
Mm-hmm.
Was an Oregon State recruit, if you're keeping track.
Yep.
Like I am.
Yep.
So, I just looked at the video. I just looked at his video that we had up there. He reminds me an awful lot of Gowdy that the Phillies took 4 years ago.
Yeah, Kevin Gowdy out of California, Santa Barbara, right?
Yeah, just the delivery, the arm action, the body size, the body type. That's kind of having a flashback there. Wow, interesting.
Mm-hmm. ESPN's got him side by side with Strasburg on the screen right now. So.
Oh, one thing, Rody, too, I should probably know this, but I don't. But whoever is tweeting for Prep Baseball Report right now, they're doing an outstanding job. So I don't know who that is tonight. Tino, you're nails tonight, buddy. Good work.
So here's a quick question to fill some time because we got about 2.5 minutes for the Cubs. Kendall and Aaron, I'll let you guys start off with this. Who's the best Division I ball player you have ever seen live since you've been following Division I college baseball?
Man, that's a very loaded question for an hour and a half into the draft.
Can I give you Kendall thinks. Can I give you a pitcher and a hitter?
I think I know who Aaron's answer is, but you can give us Kendall's.
Yeah. For me, it's the bat that I just remember being awestruck by. For 3 years while I lived in Southern California, I watched him up close. That was Chris Bryant. For me, he was a slam dunk, can't miss bat. I saw Buster Posey. That'd be a pretty easy pick here too, of course. And Buster, with the things he did as a junior at Florida State were insane. That would be a pretty good answer too. So I guess I'm not succeeding at giving you just one answer, but those two guys stood out, and of course Steven Strasburg. Strasburg. Come on. That just what he was. As a junior, especially at San Diego State, but also as a sophomore. He did things that nobody did. 23 strikeouts and a one-hitter. That kind of stuff. It was bonkers. Just the quality of stuff and command. I've still never seen anything like that in the college level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Strasburg was the guy that I thought you would go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about Jared Weaver in the mid-'90s set the NCAA record with 21 strikeouts in a regional game. Speaking of strikeouts.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. What's your answer, Kendall?
The Cubs. Hold on. Here, the shooter's not here. The Cubs take Ed Howard from Mount Carmel High School in Illinois.
Hometown.
Nice.
Northsiders staying local. Don't get beat in your backyard. I love that pick. And Sipe, you can attest to it. I said going in that Ed Howard was going to be the steal of this draft because we have him at 8, and everything we were hearing was he was not going to go that high. He was slipping a little bit. I love this pick. Love it.
I know you guys have been talking about him for years, and I thought I was going to get a chance to see him at the Super 60. I did not, but watch a lot of video, and there's a lot to like.
Yeah, he's super athletic.
When we're done talking about Howard here, we need to concentrate on we pick next. So we gotta.
Oh, I guess our pocket got picked. Our pocket got picked. We talked about if Ed Howard was available, and we thought he might be, that we would take him. So, I vote.
Okay,
my vote is Tyler Soderstrom.
Okay. Anyone else? Fitty? KR?
The best available is Garrett Mitchell, Tyler Soderstrom, Pete Crow Armstrong, Kyle Harrison, Jared Kelly, according to the PBR draft board. So a lot of high school guys. top
So
college
Mitchell
guys.
is the top-rated guy on the board, though. I mean, if you guys believe in your methodology, you believe in your board, I think you have to take Mitchell.
You could argue that, but
I kind of believe I'm going to go. I think I'm leaning towards what Rhodey just picked here, though, because that's the flexibility you have. You kind of get to the situation. They're close. They're right next to each other.
Mhm.
Actually, they're 2 apart. I'm going. What do you think, Rhodes? So we need a shooter just to confirm the signability here. I don't want to get my pick back next year. I don't want your shooter strategy of getting your pick back next year if you don't sign the guy. So
yeah,
is he going to be
bad
back anytime
strategy.
soon?
He should be back
All
any
right.
minute now. I mean, I guess we could talk about, obviously, the top guy on the board is a college guy in Garrett Mitchell. Now that Ed Howard is, out. I mean, tools-wise, he's a top 10 pick. But Aaron and Kendall, guys might be able to speak to a little bit the reason for him, not going top 10, not being ranked or valued quite that highly.
Talking about Garrett Mitchell.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, certainly the type 1 diabetes would probably be a factor.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of position players in the major leagues that have to go out and play every day that can handle that. I mean, that's a wrinkle. That clouds his status just a little bit. But the other thing is, I just think, as big as he is, as athletic as he is, he still hasn't really learned to drive the ball. He has not learned to turn on the ball with authority. I like the feel for the barrel, but it's kind of a middle away approach, and he puts the ball in play and he lets his legs do the work. He can really run. I think certainly he looks the part. I like the tools, but I think the power will come. Seif has compared him physically before to like a Kurt Gibson, and maybe with some adjustments in pro ball with the swing. He can unlock that raw power, because certainly I think it's in there, but he's just never shown it. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that would be the one thing that you would kind of knock him for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So going back to the Cubs pick, Ed Howard, we had him at number 8, and the reason why he's super athletic, premium defender. Questions about the bat, but shooter, you can chime in too. Like, I feel like there was enough life in the bat that, he wasn't a pure hitter like a Robert Hassel or maybe an Austin Hendrick, but there was enough in there to make me comfortable with putting him highly based on the fact of the defense and the athleticism that, if he's going to adjust at the next level, I think it'll come easier for him than maybe somebody else that might, have some questions about the bat.
Yeah, and not to mention this kid from Chicago, where he's not playing baseball as often as a kid in Florida or in Georgia, Texas, Southern California, what have you. Mm-hmm. So getting those increased at bats, which he will not get this summer, I guess, but in the future will help him kind of make up that time. And he's got that kind of athleticism. He's going to stick at shortstops, a premium position there, and kind of just plays the game the right way. I can remember watching him, I guess 2 years ago now, is with the Chicago Ace program. It's obviously the best player on the field, but a guy gets on first base and they had him drop one down, and he put down that sucker perfectly, and he ran hard through the bag and got his glove and went right off the shortstop, and you wouldn't have known anything was up. But I thought it said a lot about a kid who's that talented, who's willing to do something like that for the team. And good pick right there.
Yeah. Shooter, so we are actually picking now with our simul draft. And the question is, so we've got Garrett Mitchell as the top available on the board, but we also have Tyler Soderstrom available, Pete Crow Armstrong, Kyle Harrison, Jared Kelly. My vote is to take Tyler Soderstrom. What do you think?
I'd take we're at 17.
Yep.
16B technically, but yes, 17.
Yes.
See, I like all three of them here.
Well, yeah.
I'll go with Soderstrom. I'll take Soderstrom.
We're 100% sure he's signable?
Yes.
Yes.
Where's he committed? Where's he committed?
UCLA.
Done.
Done. PBR simul draft. Tyler Soderstrom, 16B to Prep
Should
Baseball.
We caveat it with Mitchell? We don't.
Hey, Kendall, who are we taking in the D1Baseball simul draft that I decided to start right now? For the moment, who do you like?
Garrett Mitchell.
I'm gonna go with Garrett Mitchell or Cole Wilcox.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
kind of leaning Wilcox here. I think you're getting a big time upside arm at this point in the draft. That's kind of what I'm feeling right here, Ken. I like Cole Wilcox out of Georgia for the D1 baseball simul draft.
Yeah.
Write it down.
Yeah.
Write it down. There
Hey,
you go.
by the way, we're
You're
talking
2
about
years
the
behind
best
us, by the way.
players ever that we've watched. So I started listing all the guys I thought were the best players. I'm gonna go with two options here. The two best players I've seen: Anthony Rendon when he was healthy,
Okay.
because he was hurt a lot in his career, especially at the end, and Adley Rutschman. I mean, I still think when you look at Rutsch and you just look at his production, his consistency, the fact that he was a premier backstop, a lot like other guys out there. He was the total package. He is one of the few guys that I remember covering that you sit back and you have everyone's attention. And there are very few guys like that. I thought C.J. Cron was like that when he was at the plate. I think everybody just kind of stopped whatever they were doing and watched him hit. George Springer was kind of that guy when I saw him way back in the day. And so those are the two guys that stand out to me.
Wow.
Those are pretty
Now,
good ones.
Good names.
I'm going to, because the one that I played against, Buster Posey, I would say he played shortstop. I think he pitched his freshman year. He got behind the plate. I'm gonna stick up for Buster here. I'm going to throw his name out.
He closed games as a junior too.
I have some recency bias here on Adley, I think.
Yeah.
And then if you go back to those juice bats in the 90s, then you start throwing out some real numbers. Lance Berkman.
Right?
So,
Although Berkman was an exceptional pure hitter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, walked up there with no gloves on, looked like he didn't work out more than about once a week.
Shooter, who was the best hitter you faced in college?
The best hitter or the one that I had the most difficulty with?
Yeah, give me the answers to both.
All right. Gordon Beckham, I could just never get out. Ever.
You're not the only one, I don't think.
Yeah. I'd say by the end, but I faced Buster a fair amount. So I'll say Buster. It helps my cause for what I just said.
Fitzy, you remember that home run Gordon Beckham hit in College World Series, right? I mean, that was one of the hardest balls hit I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, the things he did.
Alonso in the College World Series.
The things Beckham did that year with those crazy juice bats. I'm not saying George's bats in particular, but like that was the era of juice bats.
Yeah.
Although, if anything, I think Georgia was not satisfied with their bats compared to everyone else's that year.
I remember
anyway,
I remember the video.
Knock, knock.
But he had an incredible.
Here comes the pick,
incredible junior
fellas.
year.
We got a pick for the Red Sox coming in.
Peter, take the floor, buddy.
And we have Nick York.
Whoa!
California. We got fireworks.
Wow!
What
There.
is
All right. There's your surprise of the night, right there, ladies and gentlemen.
So Nick York, who
Nick is not in the mock draft.
he's not in the mock draft,
but we do not have him in the top. We like him a lot, but he was not in the top 50.
He is in the recruiting article. He's part of Arizona's star-studded class.
That's
and
a shot for the Wildcats.
Widely considered in California to be one of the better hitters in the state. And he's one of those guys where you'd have to see him a lot and to understand, like, this guy's the best hitter in this class. He just continues to get hits after hits. So I think with us going into it is, okay, NorCal didn't have their season. They probably didn't see him enough. But every kid in California gets seen more than enough. And that's some good scouting right there.
Hey, Shooter, I was going to ask you. I just had a scout buddy of mine compare him to a high school version of Keston Hiura. Are you on board with that?
I would take that.
Yeah.
I mean, he could really hit like that. I would want to see more of the power numbers, which will come. It's the last thing to come. But, shoot, Heston was that pure of a hitter. I'm not going to throw that on Nick York right now because he's done more than enough. But Nick York, if you sat in at area codes in the stands with coaches from even schools he wasn't committed to, obviously, he was the best hitter, and they all knew it.
Well, if baseball doesn't work out, maybe he can try out for a role on Bewitched. Are these Dick York jokes do anything for you guys?
Oh, my
What?
goodness. No.
You did
That's a
not
book
get my
Arizona's
attention.
class for sure, though. Wow.
Yeah, that's a tough one for Arizona.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Boston doesn't have their next pick, so this is a pretty big deal for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seif, do you think they're splitting this up? I mean, Nick York wasn't on our mock stuff. Are they going to try to save some money here and go after another high school guy in the third round?
Yeah, they're probably trying to create a second round value. Trying to create a second round value guy instead of going regular on the first and then third. They're trying to get two second rounders essentially. Really, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow,
From talking to
that's adrenaline.
From talking to a source at the Arizona program, they definitely did not expect him to go anywhere near where he just went. So,
their slot there was what 3.6. So
they might have got him for 2.5 too.
Yeah, I'd say at the most, right? I mean,
that's a really interesting pick when you don't have a second round pick.
They say well over $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, we really like Nick York, really good player, but it is a curious pick in that, they don't have a pick in the second round, so it's not like you're gonna try to get a guy pushed down. But Seif, you do make an interesting point. Like you get 2 second rounders. I think Nick York fits in that second round conversation on the high end. So it is interesting. I'll say that. That's really. That's the first real surprise of the night.
I mean, again, this guy was ranked number 132. You guys on our list, 132, and he went. What did we say? Pick 17. I mean, if you're 132 on our list, I think he's 138 or something on the MLB.com list. Mm-hmm. The consensus has this guy nowhere near, not even the second round. Forget about the second round. Forget about number 17 overall. I mean, it's a stunning. I just think it's a stunner without knowing anything about the player.
Signing bonus.
Well, one thing I will argue though, Aaron, is that the number, yes, puts him in a further down a slot than, say, a second or third round. But remember also, there's going to be a dozen or 2 dozen guys that are ranked as first or second rounders that aren't going to go there because they're high school guys. The signability, they're going to drop. This is the argument I have all the time with our rankings, in that, the number next to his name on the ranking might say second round, but I can see him being a first rounder because players X, Y, and Z are going to fall out of the first round, thus moving the guys below him up. So,
Brody, we got a pick coming up here, but that third round pick just became really important.
Oh, highly.
Diamondbacks, Bryce Jarvis.
Here we go.
Dude.
Here we go.
Oh, Seif, we had Jarvis to the Diamondbacks and we switched it at the last minute on the mock.
Womp womp.
Oh my gosh.
We audible to Garrett Mitchell at the end, and we had him.
Rody, before Aaron and Kendall get going with Jarvis and you, the Red Sox third round pick is going to have a lot of college coaches waiting heavy tomorrow because it just became very valuable and they're going to have a lot of money to spend.
Indeed.
Hey, since we only have 4 minutes, I'll just let Aaron take the stage on Bryce Jarvis since he's the leader of the game.
We only have.
Yeah, this is my guy, and this is one. And I'll be curious for Seif to give his opinion on this because Seif and I have been arguing about Bryce Jarvis for months now. But I mean, I've seen him at his very best, and certainly, I spent time with him last summer up at the Cressy Performance Center, and he was working on his weight stuff. And this was a guy that was an 88 to 91 guy his first 2 years, and he was very skinny, and he worked really hard. He knew, as a draft-eligible sophomore, he went late last year, he knew that if he wanted to go really high, he had to put on a lot of strength, and he did that. He spent all summer really adding strength, targeted workouts that really paid off for him. And he came out in the fall and he was throwing 92, 96. And I remember hearing from a scout who saw him in the fall and said, this guy looked like a first rounder today. It was a double plus changeup. with a plus slider, and he even had a curveball, and he was popping 96. And then it came out in the spring, and it was the same thing. I mean, it was 92, 95, touching 6. He held it deep into games. I saw him against Florida State. He had a perfect game going into the 7th or 8th or something. It was a week or two after he had already thrown a perfect game this year. And I think it's the best changeup in the draft. I think it's a plus changeup. The slider has gotten so much better thanks to his work, in part to his work at Driveline. He really focused on developing that slider. It showed plus for me regularly. I mean, a mid-80s pitch. It had a lot of power to it. It has late depth as well. And Saif, you saw the makings of an above-average curveball in there as well. So throw all that stuff in there with the fact that he's 92 to 96 now. I mean, I think it's the best 4-pitch arsenal in the draft. I really do. And the command was outstanding this year. Didn't walk anybody. The command and control took a big step forward as well. He's got big league bloodlines. His father Kevin pitched in the big leagues and is a scout. And great makeup. Worked hard. Has shown aptitude. I think there's a ton to like about this guy. And for me, it was an easy first-round pick. And I know maybe that wasn't the consensus in all quarters, but for me, I mean, that's what I'm looking for. I love the stuff.
I liked him too. I sat right next to you there when they played Florida State for a little bit. Yeah. I read the great write-up about his perfect game against Cornell. I sat there for 7 innings, watched him strike out 11 against Purdue up in the Dome in Week 3. I like him too. As far as the changeup goes, I saw a drop of the hand and a slight drop of the slot for the changeup. So it was playing as a 60. It was playing as a plus pitch that day against college hitters from Purdue. I'm not sure it's going to play too high in the major leagues doing that. He's going to have to make an adjustment with his hand position and what have you. That's what I saw with my eyes. I don't have the actual measurements from TrackMan or what have you, but that's what my eyes told me. But, yeah, he's got a good breaking ball, an even better slider, and spot up 92, 95. I'm just not sure if that can go every 5th day in the big leagues. I hope it does. Awesome kid, awesome worker. And I think the other thing, I hate to say negative, don't want to put your guy down here. I know how much you like him. I like him too. But if there's no minor season this year, he will make his first pro pitch as a 23-year-old in next spring. So, pitcher,
at the same time, we're saying every other pitcher will be a 22-year-old then. It's every other college junior. I mean, yes, we get it. Everyone's going to be a year older next year, but right now he's only 22, which is not really that old for a drafted junior. I mean, it's older than a 21-year-old, but it's not like he's ancient.
Right, but when you can take a guy that's still 20 years old, or it's like a guy that's 22.4 years old, I mean, I guess that's my point with his age. Now, as far as seeing if his jump is for real, you've seen him the most. I believe it is too, just how you describe it. In the fall, he was this. He maintained it, carried it through the spring. He carried it into 7 innings through the start. I saw him against Purdue. So I think the jumping stuff is real. I just want to, see him do it every 5th day. And he certainly has a starter's repertoire. He certainly is a starter athlete. He's got some effort to his delivery, but that doesn't hold back, so does Lance McCullers, so I don't think that's going to hold him back much either. But no, I like him. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he won't be 18 in my draft, but hey, he's a first rounder, and good luck to him and the Diamondbacks.
Mm-hmm. And Aaron, I thought you did a great job with the article actually before the season about him going up the Driveline and committing himself to getting stronger, getting better there. I think it'll become more of a trend, especially now he's moved into the first round. He went there for a summer. Those guys do a good job. I know a lot of the summer leagues aren't playing this year, but I'm sure a lot of coaches are going to look at, hey, this kid at Duke just went from here to first round by spending his summer kind of improving his physical self versus going to throw innings and for guys to see him. I think it'll become more of a trend in college baseball, and if not, where those workout sites are, leagues pop up, that may happen. But I think Bryce Jarvis, in the end, people are just going to call it, oh, he's doing the Bryce Jarvis thing. He's doing the Jarvis thing. That's what it's going to become now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fun fact, Shooter, Bryce Jarvis, PBR Tennessee Future Games in 2015.
Wow. Future
Up
game.
to 90. I actually just watched the video, and he threw 93 across the infield in the on the workout day. So,
well, it's definitely in there.
Yeah, good athlete.
What do we think the Mets are going to do here? What any thoughts there?
I told you Kelly.
Kelly?
You guys say no. I'm going Kelly still.
Well,
the
I don't think the
mock
Mets.
has Cade Cavalli going here.
The mock has Cade Cavalli, but I'm gonna guess Tyler Soderstrom because the Mets have taken good high school bats in the draft the last couple of years. Kellenic, Brett Beatty. So the fact that they're staring at a pretty good high school bat in Tyler Soderstrom right now, I'll guess Soderstrom. We had mocked him higher, so he's available. So I might move off of that Cavalli mock. Mets aren't one to take high school right-handers with their first pick. They shy away from that. I mean, they took Simeon Woods Richardson a couple of years ago, but that was a second-round pick. So that's why I'm against you on Jared Kelly there, Shooter. Sorry.
That's fair. You're entitled to your opinion.
I am.
What about Harrison? That's the top left-hander in the class on the board.
Yes.
Obviously, this class lost Nate Savino, who enrolled at Virginia early. Mm-hmm. I would think we'd be talking about him at some point already if we hadn't. And here we go with the pick. The Mets select. Dun, dun, dun. Pete Crow Armstrong, outfield,
right.
Harvard Westlake.
All right, PCA.
Time pick.
Good for you, man. I saw him as a freshman.
City, that works.
Yeah, it does. He won't be afraid of the bright lights. So Pete Crow Armstrong, pure hitter, is growing into some power. Showed a little bit more of it this spring. Premium defender, like plus defender in center field, plus runner. Pure hitter. I saw him as a freshman. His aptitude, his instincts for the game were very obvious then. I love this pick. I think he could have certainly gone higher. Like we said, his ceiling was kind of in the, like the 8 to 10 range. So getting him at 19 is obviously pretty good. Comes from Harvard Westlake, which has produced Lucas Giolito, Jack Flaherty, Max Fried. So obviously a line of big leaguers there. He's a guy that you could argue his ceiling a little bit, Shooter. But you and I both are like, you know what? He's going to play in the big leagues.
Yeah, he's going to find a way. Can really play center field. More than anything, he's got that moxie. And, I mean, he's headed to New York. I know he's a Southern California kid, and it's kind of Hollywood, Harvard Westlake. But he kind of carries himself with that New York edge to him. He's got he's not scared. That moxie, that confidence is there with him in center field. He's the type of guy you want on your team, and I think he'll fit in well, hopefully in Queens at Citi Field. I know I got a good friend who's a Mets fan, just letting him know it's a great pick, and he's going to be really excited about Pete Crow Armstrong. If you're keeping tally again, that's a Vanderbilt recruit. He and Hassel are two guys that we did not expect to get the school, and honestly, I doubt that the staff there thought would get there. So still no surprises. Or I shouldn't say that. Outside of Nick York, no surprises, and that was a mighty big surprise.
Yeah, it certainly was. Fun facts about Pete Crow Armstrong for those of you that are baseball fans. I wouldn't be surprised if they roll this on MLB Network or ESPN at some point. But being in Beverly, Hills in the Hollywood area, his parents are in the Hollywood industry, and his mom played the mom in Little Big League. So fun story, when Pete Crow Armstrong was on the 12U team for Team USA, they're all down in Mexico for the international tournament. There was one English-speaking channel on the TV in the hotel. So that was the channel that all the kids and the coaches watched every night. And every night, Little Big League was on. Coaches are sitting there watching the TV, and they're like, you know what? It's like, does the mom kind of look like Pete's mom? And they're like, yeah, she kind of does. They go out to the field the next day and they go, hey, Petey, you know the mom in Little Big League? Has anyone ever told you that she kind of looks like your mom? And he goes, oh, yeah, actually, I get that all the time. That is my mom. So, but, yeah, she also starred in the TV show Heroes. If anybody watches that, I don't. But she's in that. So there you go.
Top of the order type guy, center fielder, left-handed stick. When you're really breaking it down, I don't want to compare it to Brandon Nimmo because I think he's a better prospect than Brandon Nimmo, but with guys talking about it's a Nimmo type. It's not a Nimmo type. This is a guy who you're buying this jersey at some point, and you just know all about him if he ends up living up to what he could be. Mm-hmm. I can't say enough good things.
They just showed that catch that he made for Team USA at the wall, Shooter, that you and I remember watching. We talked to him about that on the podcast, where we asked him, is that something that you had worked on, you had practiced? Like, did you expect to make that catch? And he basically told us, he turned around, started running for it, and blacked out because he doesn't remember making the catch, but he made it.
Yeah, it was a pretty silly catch. One of those Griffey off the wall, climb it. And it was a huge point in that game. But that just pays. He's one of the top defenders, the best defensive outfielder in the class coming out of high school. So, again, a good pick. I will be curious to see how much they're paying him. If they can get, it's 3.3 or so. Even if they save 300,000 there and just give him 3, if they can tack that on later on to get a couple more guys, that's something that we're going to be following the whole time.
Yeah, I think he'll fill out most of that slot. Maybe not all of it, and I don't think over, but close to all of it. But again, if it's 3,300,000 saved, is 300,000 saved. So, who's on? So we got Brewers are on the clock. We had mocked them to Jarvis, which obviously is not going to happen. Anybody have any opinions as to what we might see here, as their pick is supposedly in? So we'll see when it comes.
It's got to be our boy Soderstrom, right?
I mean, it could be.
Here we go.
We had Soderstrom in Mock 2.0 on Monday, so quarter point for that.
Brewers select Garrett Mitchell, Milwaukee or UCLA.
All right.
There you go.
Top guy available on the board. So college guy, Aaron Kendall, take the floor.
Yeah, we talked about him earlier. I just think physically he's an Adonis. He can really run. I think he's just scratching the surface of his potential. As we talked about before, he needs to make some adjustments and learn to turn on the ball with more authority, learn to drive the ball more. Because for such a big guy, he really doesn't, he doesn't hit for power yet. But I think in time he will. I mean, he does take very mature at bats and puts the ball in play and kind of middle away approach is what I saw certainly in the Frisco Classic this year. But he's an aggressive player, and I actually I like the makeup a lot too. I think he's a smart kid. He seems like a good teammate, and it's just a question of how quickly he can unlock that power tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also an interesting combination, power-speed combination too, because the videos playing of him was a moment ago that he, has tremendous speed. I think I saw him down at Team USA, drop down a bunt, and he was like 3.54 down the line or something absurd like that. So if he taps into that power, you get that power-speed combination that is so rare in this game. And I will say, going back to him in high school, the tools were evident then as well. He was not he had a tough go in his spring, didn't hit real well, and that's kind of why he fell and then ended up at UCLA, and he's obviously developed there. But following the summer, when I saw him at area code games, I think I had him at number 5 in the college or in the high school class, because he twice at the area code games absolutely tattooed a ball at the second baseman. Not hit it at the second baseman, hit it off the second baseman. Probably 95 to 100 off the bat. And because it was such a shot and it ricochets off the second baseman, with his speed, he easily had second base and that ball barely got into the outfield. So the tools that he has are tremendous. It's now just, I guess, really a matter of all of it translating to the game, which, you look at him at 20, going 20 in the draft, if all of that clicks, that's an absolute steal.
Yeah, and he still plays that aggressive style too. And I saw him stretch a couple of singles into doubles in Frisco in that one weekend, and watching him go first to third is fun too. The speed, he really knows how to put it to use.
Mm-hmm. So we have the Cardinals, who says the pick is in, or no, sorry, probably about a minute and a half to go.
Rody,
on the Cardinals. What do you got?
Do you think Harrison or Kelly are in play here
for the Cardinals? No, I had Pete Crow Armstrong in the mock, which obviously is not happening. So I'm looking at who's on the board, and I know the Cardinals, especially in the last couple of years, it's really kind of been all right, well, who's who's basically just going to be available. They pick down in this area the first round a lot because they're routinely competitive at the big league level. So I'm refreshing the PBR draft board. I would think Soderstrom's in play, being best available. Harrison and Kelly, I don't know, but I don't know. You guys, Aaron and Kendall, you can chime in. Do you think Cole Wilcox is maybe a guy that's in play for them, or he's probably going to be
Wilcox
a
and
tough
Cavalli.
sign.
I'll tell you what, I had heard in the last few days that Cavalli was dropping a little bit just because he can be a little inconsistent. But I saw him at the Shriners Classic, and he was really impressive. It was 93, 96, up to 97. The slider was better than I had remembered it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big Cavalli fan. He's a physical guy. I would love to see him get taken here by a Midwestern club.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add, Cavalli could be a good pick here. The Cardinals do have 7 picks. They get a competitive B pick at 63, and then one of their free agent picks at 70. So if they could shave some here, they could really extend this. And the pick's coming up here. Manfred at the board.
What we got?
Cardinals select Jordan Walker, third base.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. Big power.
That's a Duke commit. So
that is
Duke's
a Duke recruit. So Duke, they probably had a slight feeling they might have liked their chances a little bit, but they probably also partly were like, we're probably going to lose him. But Jordan Walker, third baseman out of Georgia, big time power. Some questions about the hit tool. The swing can get a little long at times, but he's a good athlete. He plays a little bit of shortstop in high school, but ultimately I think he's a corner guy. Third baseman, I think he's capable of handling. He's a good enough athlete for that. He was one of the very few guys I saw this spring, considering how short the season was. But I went down to Lake Point, rolled up, and he stepped up first at bat, and boom, home run. So he definitely didn't disappoint. Super smart kid, excellent makeup. So I do like the pick for the Cardinals. I think there's certainly some guys above him on the board that were available, but like you just were talking about, Shooter, of the other picks that they have, you can probably save some money here, and other guys that fall, you could probably jump on and get quite a bit of value out of your entire draft. We'll see.
I think that's one of the biggest things of the draft is that it's so short. Can you extend it? Can you grab some guys later on that can really boost your overall? There's not that many players going. But let's see, it slots at 3.1, a little over 3.1 for them. Mm-hmm. If you get them 2.5, you save 600. What can you do? It's kind of like so much accounting goes into this, and what can you get for a player? And the big thing is what will he sign for, Syfe? And the scouts. It's one of the things that stink for scouts is I don't know what this guy will take. It's not the NBA where you're just getting this, and we pick you and you come and you go. Same as the NFL. Here it's completely different. Will you take 2.4? No. Will you take 2.5? Yes. There's so many things that go into it for the scouting departments, and they have a ton of resources and knowledge and going into these things. So if you're able to save some money here and get somebody later, they definitely are targeting someone.
Mm-hmm. Well, all I know so far, I'm following along with the exception of York. Our top guys have been the top guys picked, so pat ourselves on the back for that. So we have Walker 30. We have Walker 35. 35 equates to $2 million. That's where the Rockies would have picked. So I'm not saying he's a $2 million player, but we're doing pretty good. So even if he's a $2.5 million player, they saved $750,000 there. So
I think one of the things that I made a point of, because I think I had when we did the experts draft, you, me, Shooter and Syfe, me, excuse me. I think I may have had the Cardinals, and one of the things I mentioned was I had extra picks so you could save some money, but they were extra picks, but all of them were outside the top 50. So I was willing to go get somebody that was a little bit under slot, but I didn't want to go too crazy because there was the chance that between 21 and 60, which is 40 some odd picks, that a lot of those guys that I might go for with those extra picks would be off the board. So I still wanted to get somebody that was relatively close to that value, and I think Jordan Walker fits in that conversation.
Wow.
So
This is getting fun. Who else is on the board right now? Who are the next 3 highest on our?
Tyler
So-
Soderstrom.
Kelly Cavalli.
Yeah, Cavalli, Cole
Soderstrom,
Wilcox.
Harrison, Kelly,
Witt.
Cavalli. Yep.
We're starting to get into some time where Kyle Harrison is sifting closer to Westwood and UCLA.
Yep.
I'm just telling you right now, Cavalli needs to be the next guy here. Come on.
To the Nationals. Nationals at
Yeah,
22.
he's going to be a big timer.
Mm-hmm. We mocked Cole
He's
Wilcox,
just
but that
scratching
was
the
just
surface on what he can be.
yeah.
Yeah,
We mocked Cole-
Wilcox
Yeah,
has been tied to Washington, I think, for much of the spring, and he certainly fits their kind of profile. As a eligible sophomore, it's going to require, he's got a little extra leverage. So you're going to have to be aggressive. He might have a higher price tag than some guys. I think he's a Boris guy too.
Yes.
So he kind of, they have a history with Boris guys. I mean, certainly there's a lot of upside. And I think it's if he were to come back as a junior next year, I mean, if he would have come back as a junior next year, I think he could have pushed himself into the top 10 picks, maybe top 5, maybe number 1 overall. I think he has that kind of upside. He just hadn't had a chance to really do it over a full season as a sophomore in the starting role. I think, given that opportunity, he could have made a big jump even into the top 5 picks this year.
And I will say, too, at this point in the draft, this is where we have just college pitcher after college pitcher stacked up, with the exception of Soderstrom, Harrison, Kelly. I think we have Carson Montgomery in there, too. But of the next 12, 14 guys, it's mostly college pitching. So we may see some thickness there right now.
Well, in the next 15 to 20, the only college position player is Austin Wells. So you got Soderstrom as the top guy available, left-handed hitting catcher out of high school. Then it's a run of pitchers, mostly college guys, but a few high school guys sprinkled in there. Austin Wells at 27, and then we go Tanner Burns, Carmen Majinski, Cole Henry, and then another high school catcher in Drew Romo. A lot of catching in this class, a lot of really good catching too. Shooter, I know you alluded to that a lot in the recruiting article, that could help some schools because there is so much catching. Some of those guys might fall.
And Brody, let's come back to this because the Nationals have the pick in, and Rob Manfred's at the podium. And the pick for the Nationals, Cade Cavalli, right-handed
there you go,
pitcher.
Kendall.
That boy, KR.
I like this pick for these guys. I just think he's one of those pitchers just like Cole Wilcox. I was going to bring that up with Aaron a minute ago, but I think he's like Cole Wilcox, where he has an explosive fastball now, but his secondary stuff is going to continue to get better, and I think his best days are ahead of him. I think Cavalli, I would give put a pretty good percentage on him being a star at the next level.
It's a guy that hasn't really, done it yet in college, though. I mean, career ERA over 4 at Oklahoma. Walk rate is pretty high. It's about, I think it's 53 walks and 101 career innings, So it's certainly the potential is there, but the track record of high-level performance, I think, lags behind most of the guys that we're seeing drafted in the first round. Now, that doesn't mean, it's a bad pick. I mean, certainly you could say the same about Garrett Crochet. Track record of performance, the numbers aren't there the way some of these other guys have performed, but you're drafting on upside and projection, and certainly it sounds like he checks those boxes.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
How far away is he from the big leagues?
I mean, his secondary stuff still needs to improve. The slider is very average, but I mean, he can if he was in the big leagues tomorrow out of the bullpen, I mean, he would sit 95, 98 out of the pen.
Mm.
So,
do you think he's a reliever ultimately?
As of right now, yeah. It's hard to get by as a starter in pro ball with 2 pitches.
Yeah, and I see his most immediate needs for improvement really just more down angle to the plate and a little more deception, or a lot more deception. His fastball's hittable. It comes in a little flat plane-ish, but I think if he can make and Shooter, you're the pitching guy here. I mean, you're changing delivery. You're not really changing a smooth arm action, but you're creating a little deception there. Maybe giving up a little bit, something else to create deception. But I think that's his biggest improvement that he needs to make going forward.
And one of the cool things, and you guys have touched on it a few times on D1Baseball site, diving in with the analytics and the ability to use the Edgertronic camera and to get with TrackMan and the driveline types to go in there and find. I mean, the Nationals player development, all the player development programs right now are able to take guys to that next level. They've invested so heavily in it. Hey, what do you do well? This, okay, let's fit it into where we can get the most success out of it. Hey, you're athletic, you have aptitude for these different things. Hey, we value that. We know we can take you to that next level. We're not drafting you because you're a finished product. We're drafting you because we know we can get you to your finished product. So that may be something Nationals are doing.
So
Brody, can I jump in real quick?
Yes, you absolutely can.
Something Syfe said, I wanted to follow up on the fact that this is a guy who throws in the mid 90s, he shows the upper 90s, and it gets hit, it gets squared up, it gets seen. You could say it's straight. I mean, those are all the things we heard about Garrett Cole at UCLA, and he was throwing 96 to 100 and getting squared up, up in the zone at the letters, middle of the plate. And
Carson Tucker.
I think we saw Cole make that adjustment. I think Cavalli could also. Yeah,
and I was going to tell you guys that we were going to have a surprise here, but Shooter, I can tell by your face that you know what it is now.
I wasn't expecting to go this early. We're talking about UT right now, part of the recruiting class. This is one of the guys I expected to sign. First rounder. I mean, there's obvious bloodlines. His brother's a big leaguer. But really pick it at shortstop. I think he's one of the first guys that came to area codes. I'm like, hey, that kid's not going to school. It was like You just look at it, the way he's flowing around at shortstop, he's not going to school. Yeah,
no, he's a really good player, and we were going back and forth on our thread chat. We were talking about he was a possibility, and Aaron or Kendall, one of you asked if why we were so low. Carson Tucker, I think in the first round, on talent, a little bit of a reach. He's really good. We like him. I think he fit more kind of in that second round conversation. But if you look at it, the Indians, they've had a track record of doing this, of getting an upside and athletic high school guy and using it to save a little bit of money and go for another guy. I think they don't pick again tonight, or do they pick again tonight?
36.
36. So they have a chance to get a couple of second round types just tonight, or maybe one of these other guys falls that was ahead of Tucker on the board and they can jump on him at that point. So, but speaking of Texas, I had Tanner Witt mocked to Cleveland, and they went for a different Longhorn recruit. So,
hey, he might be up here with the Rays, same as Jared Kelly for the next two picks with the Braves as well, back to back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard his name a lot in first round discussions. I just could never really quite peg exactly where. So, but yeah, Carson Tucker's really athletic shooter. You and I liked him a lot at area code games. His brother is Cole Tucker of the Pittsburgh Pirates, who was a first rounder, and obviously a very good big leaguer. So you got bloodlines there, no doubt.
Now I got to go back to this. Makes pick 36 really interesting again.
Oh, 100%.
So I
got a sneaking suspicion your mock is going to look good on this one.
On the Rays?
Ooh. Yes.
Getting a little intel there, Kendall? Because I just tweeted out. We started out 6 for 11 on our mock, and then we went 0 for 11.
That's just what it seems like.
So your mock has Nick Bitsko going here, right? The right-hander.
That is correct.
Correct.
Are you guys surprised that Soderstrom's still on the board at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've checked with a couple of insiders, and they say he's all signable. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe he's changed that stance. But I got Rody on video saying yes, he's signable. So we'll have to give that the playback in case we come up short. But we'll get the pick back next year, Shooter, if we don't sign him. So we're all good.
Shooter strategy.
Speaking on this Carson Tucker pick, I was talking to somebody about Cole Wilcox, and it sounds like they were going to go with Cole Wilcox, but it sounds like the two sides were a little far apart from a money standpoint, so that's why we went with Cole Tucker. or Carson Tucker, excuse me.
Interesting. Very.
I mean, and, like I said, Will Cox is a Boris guy. They're not afraid to take some chances. And again, like if they view him as a top 10 talent, and I don't think he's going to necessarily sign for 30th pick money if they think he could come back next year and be the number 1 pick in the draft. I mean, maybe that's a gamble worth taking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to think the PBR game. Yep. I'm starting to think the PBR game might have reached a little bit on Soderstrom. The fact that he's tumbling tells me, I don't know.
You're making me nervous.
I wanted Jarvis, but he was gone already. So.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
No, but
we've reached the point in the draft where we just started heckling the PBR guys.
That's right.
We brought up Carson Tucker's ranking. Now Fitz ragging on him about Soderstrom. Come on, Aaron.
No, I think you guys were.
Speed's gonna get cut.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I just said, I'm surprised he's still out there because I think I'm with you guys. I mean, from what I've heard about him, I've never seen him, but I've heard a lot of good things about Soderstrom. So I'm just surprised he's still out there.
It's funny. MLB Network's running commercials for Little Big League during the draft as well.
Oh, that is hilarious. That is funny.
Because Pete's mom was the mom on there, right?
Yes.
Drew Armstrong?
Yes. Yep. The one thing I will say, and I mean, yeah, you can argue just based on the rank, but I'm hesitant to call anybody when it's still the first night. I'm hesitant to call any player a reach until I see what the team does with the next pick. So
yeah, and also what they paid for the bonus too.
Let's go!
Boom. We're back on track with the mock draft.
No, we're one for our last one, Rody.
One for our last one. I like.
I was trying to help y'all out there, guys.
So here, Nick Bitsko is really interesting and is easily was the wild card of the draft going into the draft. And Shooter, you can certainly speak to this with him. He pitched last summer at East Coast Pro through 3 innings, but he was an underclassman. He was a 21 at the time. So he probably pitched toward the end of the event. I would assume most cross-checkers didn't see him. If they did, I don't know how much they bared down. Same goes for the area guys. They probably were still around, saw him on the mound, saw he was a 21. I'm sure they took notes because, that's what they do, sitting in the field. They're supposed to watch the guy. But sometimes your mind just switches off a little bit when you see an underclassman, especially when it's 105 degrees and you've been sitting on the field for 14 hours. But Nick Bitsko in January reclassified. So it's like, all right, we're going to need to follow this guy. We know he's athletic. We know he's really projectable. We know, he throws really hard. We're going to have to run in there into Pennsylvania in the spring. Oh, well, then this global pandemic happens, and now you don't really get to see him. So, I mean, Shooter, you're taking a guy here where your history with him is 3 innings.
That's what was curious to me, and obviously we've followed him for 4 years. I think he was committed to UVA as an 8th grader at some point. So he's been committed there forever. Reclassified. I think there's probably some teams in the competitive balance who are probably glad he got picked here because they didn't have much on him. They may have passed over him then and then look back and kind of been upset about that. But it's a big power arm, big physical kid, tons of swing and miss in high school last year, which would have been his sophomore year. But projection-wise, hey, big power arm, right-hander. Mm-hmm. That's what you're getting. There's not much there. And like I said, Rody, I was just going off, a lot of teams probably didn't have much on him at all. Right. And he was going to get to them at some point. They were going to have to make a decision on that. Now they don't. So there's some weight off some guys' shoulders, especially in those Northeast scouts.
Yeah, of having to make a decision. Yeah, I mean, he could end up being, the top high school right-hander in this class. The question just is the history with him. You weren't able to build up that track record, and when we do a ranking when teams do their ranking, you can grade out the pure stuff, but then you have to put in that risk factor, and there was a risk factor with him in that you simply didn't know him as well as a player as you did the other guys.
Shooter,
appears.
what are the similarities or differences between him and Jared Kelly? Two big arms, good bodied guys.
The only thing I would say is he potentially spins it better. Kelly's spin has been some question in the past. It's real easy 100, but hey, what is he able to do to get you off the fastball? He's got a good changeup, which Rhodey's seen in the past. But one thing that we've always looked at with Jared Kelly is like, is he going to have that kind of swing and miss pitch to go along with the big velo? I think Bitsko does have that chance and has gotten those swings and misses in the past.
Yeah, Bitsko is more projectable for me, better breaking ball than Kelly. So yeah, they're both big, strong guys that throw hard. Kelly's frame is not as projectable to me as Bitsko.
Well, we have Kelly going next, so that's why I kind of brought up. I just was curious how they compared.
Yeah,
so. And this is the younger too. If you're getting the age in the algorithm.
Yeah. This is the danger zone for the Texas recruiting class, by the way. You have Tanner Witt and Jared Kelly both in this range. And of course, Carson Tucker already off the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about to get real dicey for the Longhorns.
Aaron, I think you were about to chime in a minute ago.
If you read Shooter's piece this morning about the recruiting classes at risk, Texas was number one on that list, the team that had a chance to get hit the hardest in the draft with their recruits, and it sounds like that's probably going to play out here.
Yeah. Could be a tough day for Longhorn fans. So,
I guess they're saying some conspiracy theories were out there that the Red Sox took Nick York because they weren't going to sign him and just wanted the pick for next year, and they released that they do plan on signing him.
Yeah, I would think they would. I saw some of that floated, earlier this week about punting in the first round, and I just don't buy it. Like it's an absolutely insane strategy. I don't know how that gets floated or why, but yeah, I don't get it. Like it doesn't, even if you take into account, the global crisis that we're in and trying to save money, it's pennies that you're saving in comparison to, everything else going on. So
Jared Schuster, left-handed pitcher, Wake Forest to the Braves.
Oh, there it is. I had heard he was going to go in the first round. I just couldn't quite figure out how to slot it. So there you go. Seif, you saw him up close and personal, Wake Forest against Louisville, right?
Yeah, he had the best curveball, according to even the Wake Forest staff. He had the best curveball they had ever seen. So I saw Schuster at his finest, but I still did not have him in the first round. But when you think about it, he fits kind of their late first rounders that they've had over time. They had that lefty from Florida State. Fitty, you got to help me with the name. Lefty from Florida State maybe 8-9 years ago. They had Mike Minor in the past too. So kind of fits
Sean Gilmartin.
Gilmartin, yep. So kind of fits that mold. But yeah, like him a lot. Didn't see him as a first rounder, but good for him. I didn't see a first rounder on that day, but I saw a really good pitcher.
And I'll tell you, it's the changeup is really the pitch. That's his go-to pitch. And you talk about the breaking ball, but it's one of the better changeups certainly in the draft. I mean, it's a really good out pitch. It tumbles and it's got great deception and arm speed. He's a strong body kid. That'll show you 94 pretty regularly. But he also is a great athlete. Seif, I think he ran something like a 6'3" or maybe even a sub 6'3", 60 at one point early in his career. I mean, he's a really, really athletic guy. He's come on certainly a lot over the last year or so for Wake Forest. So, he's ranked 76 on our board. So if you just look at that, you might be surprised by this pick. But I mean, college lefty with power stuff and athleticism. I mean, all right, I think I can certainly talk myself into that one.
Yeah, no doubt. Good pick, bad pick. We'll know. We don't know what these guys are signing for, below slot, above slot. But Schuster broke out in Cape Cod League. I think you were up there, that maybe even with me on that look we had on Schuster at the All-Star game. But left-handed, he's probably going to move fairly quick, and then we'll see if that curveball's for real. Because if he's just a lefty with a fastball changeup, those guys tend to stall out double-A-ish, triple-A-ish. But he get that hook for real. Got a real good 3-4 starter there.
Yeah, and it is another one of those guys, kind of like Cavalli or Crochet, where you look at the track record, and you may be scratching your head a little bit. I mean, it was a 7.41 ERA as a freshman. It was a 6.49 ERA as a sophomore, right? And so walk rate was high both those seasons. But again, he turns the corner in this short season. We talked about this at the start of the show. How much stock would scouts put in a 4-week sample size and guys who made an improvement? And in his case, still a 3.76 ERA. It's not like it was utter dominance, but I think that the really encouraging thing is 43 strikeouts to 4 walks in 26 innings. So they wanted to see that control piece take a step, and there's certainly the breaking ball, and I think both those things happened, and that's maybe why he shot up.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the other college arms available, so if they're thinking college arms, I mean, as a scout, you're always trained to go hitter over pitcher and lefty over righty. So maybe they went the righty and Schuster over. I mean, the guy I really like is Chris McMahon from Miami. Because if you throw out the high school kids right here and the sophomore eligible college pitchers, Wilcox, Ciccone, Ginn, McMahon's the next on our board. For me, I'd much rather have McMahon over Schuster, but that's me. Hey, Atlanta knows what they do, and they've showed that time after time. But there's a couple other guys that I would have taken before Schuster.
They also have the third lowest pool. So I think potentially that played into stuff. Mm-hmm. You cut a deal here, you boost up the second rounder potentially.
Yeah. Certainly
I would think McMahon there, you could have got a deal too. But again, we don't know everything that's being discussed. We don't know what the agents, what the advantage the agents have. They have 5, 6, 10 clubs coming to them. They know all the offers. Whereas the clubs, they're not allowed to collude for good reason, but they don't know the competition. The agents do, so they can determine really where that player ends up. I just wondered what all went down there with the different names they were trying to get a deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So now the A's, Twins, and Yankees all have kind of the lower end of the pools. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they go in with these picks, if they're trying to get a deal to kind of boost up their overall draft versus just going after a guy here. The Dodgers are going to close out the first round. They have a couple extra picks, so they got some money. But these next 3, potentially you're looking at something similar to Schuster here, where, hey, we're going to save a couple bucks and try to extend the talent level of the entire draft versus just the one high upside, especially in the back end of the first round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you guys, you D1 guys, giving us a tough time for Soderstrom slipping with our simul draft. Remember, some teams like Cleveland, with that extra pick, save some money with Jordan Walker. Maybe they can jump on a Soderstrom. The night is still young.
And the A's are up.
And the A's, who we got? They coming to the podium?
Tyler Soderstrom, catcher.
All right.
Really?
High School.
Dude, and it's like an hour from Oakland. So, Turlock is right down the road. So, boom. Right when I was trying to make a case.
Our long national nightmare is over.
We're safe. We'd come back next year. We didn't butcher our first rounder, so we're good. I feel better.
Nice. Well, Soderstrom I saw at the my first look, real look, was at the NorCal Pro Case last summer. And I was telling our guy Blaine Clemens up there, as soon as I saw him hit, I was like, holy cow, that's a really good left-handed bat, projectable power, and oh, by the way, he's not bad behind the plate. Now, Shooter, like you said last summer, you could put a cup of coffee on his head. He's pretty still back there behind the plate. But now we get into that question of, is the bat good enough that you don't really want his development to be slowed down by trying to be a catcher in pro ball? He's athletic enough to play third base. Do you give him a shot at catcher, or are you do you move him right away and just say, hey, dude, go hit?
That'll be interesting to see. And I think the whole dynamic of minor league baseball now has a chance to really change. It was already looking like it was going to change before the pandemic, and now it's going to change even more. Yeah, getting him as many at-bats as possible is going to be vital. And the fact that he can go to third base or even the outfield if need be to keep him in the lineup getting those at-bats is huge. I think they'll start him behind the plate for a while, though, just to see what they have to work with.
Mm-hmm.
It is really athletic, though. So, I mean, you and I were huge fans of it. He was one of the first guys I saw when I walked into Blair Stadium. or Blairfield. And I mean, obviously a good pick, hometown kid. A lot of hometown kids because Ed Howard went to the Cubs.
Yep.
So you got a Chicago kid staying there, NorCal kid going to the A's. I mean, Jordan Walker didn't get to Atlanta, but it could have been a hometown kid going to the Braves. So pretty cool to see that.
We're going to have to explain this one. MLB just put his tools up there, 60 hit, 60 power as a catcher, but a 45 overall OFP. I'm not sure there's a very many catchers that are 60 hit, 60 power, 45 OFP. So
yeah,
we're confused right now. They showed some showed some nice highlights. Yeah, it doesn't add up, but it's all right. Just wanted to make that quick point.
They need to bring you in on that. Close out.
Looking at the mock here, the best guys still on the board are Tanner Witt, Jared Kelly, Austin Wells, and Nick Lofton.
Lofton was up for that ace pick there too. Huh. Yeah, who do you think's going here for the Twins? They're on the board. Rob, he's at the podium. Real quick, guys. Who you got?
I'm going to say Lofton. That's who we mocked.
Yeah. College performer.
I like it.
And we got Aaron Sabato.
Oh.
Let's see.
Okay.
I like this.
We had heard a lot about him in the first round, but yeah.
This is interesting. This one, it's if you're talking about pure bat and power, it's not that far off from Torkelson, really. I mean, I think if you grade out the bat and power tools, now he's not as athletic as Torkelson. I think the defense piece is much more of a question mark. Is he just the DH? Can he actually play first base? He's certainly not going to play third base. I'm not saying he's Torque, but I'm saying he's kind of like Torque light. I mean, if you look at the analytics site that you put together on our site using our formula, I mean, he's right there 1A and 1B with Torque. And I don't even remember who was number one. It might have been Sabato over the last 2 years. I mean, it's big time strength. He's just a big, burly masher with easy power, and again, he controls his zone pretty darn well too. So, his hit tool is certainly behind Torkelson, but I think the power tools is very exciting.
Yeah, my comp with him, I know one's right-handed, one's left-handed, but my body type comp, and then I saw him up in Minneapolis, and it's a picture we actually have on D1Baseball. He's just standing there walking back to the dugout with his bat, and he looks like Kyle Schwarber for me, body type, and but it's just like that lumbering, lumberjack guy that can just flat swing it. And I'll be honest, going into that weekend, I'd seen some video on Sabato, and he naturally just steps in the bucket a little bit, and that worried me. I mean, if it's guys just don't hit like that, when I bear down on him and watched him, he naturally steps open a little bit, but he keeps that barrel in the zone, and he can hit the slider away. So once I saw him drive a couple sliders off the tarp there at right center field in Minneapolis, I was sold. But yeah, I agree. Again, he's not Torkelson, but he's Torque light. I'm with you there, Fitty.
What
you look at when he gets?
What Shooter? You got the bonus pools in front of you. What is Minnesota's pool?
Their pool is this pick is that pick was 2.5. Their pool is 4.5. Okay,
I had heard that he was asking for a lot of money, but I mean, I don't think it's crazy to think that.
Even if he goes back to school, is it out of the question that he's a top 10, top 5 pick next year? Does he turn into Torkelson with next year's class? If you're picking that far down, you have the chance to get next year's top 10 pick. I think that's huge. It's going to come down to obviously how much he's signing for. If they give away $4 million to him here, they bet the whole draft on one guy. But I think to get an impact guy like that in a draft eligible sophomore this far down is huge.
Hey, it's the A's. I don't think they gave $4 million to their first round pick. So I think this is a slot. I think he took slot, maybe a hair over, but I think he's right at slot.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, the Twins. Twins.
Yeah.
Twins A's.
I was getting. I was like, what?
No, my fault there, Shooter.
Oh, you're good.
He's the perfect twin, though. I mean, he just looks like a twin, doesn't he?
He'll fit into that nice young.
They've been doing a great job up there the last 3 or 4 years, getting serviceable guys, sluggers, and turning them into even better hitters. I mean, that's kind of what they've been doing lately, and he's right in that mold.
Yeah, if you look at that lineup right now, you're looking at Larnick was that 2 years ago or last year?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
So you got Larnick, you got Max Kepler in the outfield. You got some really good backs. Byron Buxton, who kind of still waiting on, but I think this year would have been his coming out party. You throw Sabato into that mix. Good young nucleus.
For sure.
Yeah. So
I will give a quick rundown so far. We're 27 picks in, and Kendall, I got to tell you, SEC's got 6 picks, but ACC is right behind with 5.
Ooh.
How about that?
So this
Hey,
is
you know who the happiest man in the world is right now is Twins pro scout John Manuel.
Right
there.
John Manuel shout
I
out.
wonder if it has John's fingerprints on that one.
Well, I hope he's watching. So, what are you guys thinking for the Yankees here at 28? Best available would be they got a small pool, so I'm not thinking a high school guy like Harrison Kelly or Montgomery, but you got Wilcox, Ciccone, Ginn, McMahon, Wells, Burns, Majinski, Henry is the college crop that's next up.
I'd go Ginn if depending on signability, I'd take Ginn here.
Yeah.
They did it with the South Carolina kid that they got coming up right now. He had Tommy
Schmidt.
John, hadn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Clate or Clark Schmidt, Aaron. I always mix them up. Clark Schmidt?
Clark was the South Carolina one.
Yeah, Clate was Clemson.
Clate was, yeah.
Yeah.
I do think they do need to take somebody here they can sign, though, because they only have 3 picks. They need to sign all 3 picks.
They do.
I'm going McMahon. I'm going with our mock draft, Rody.
Could be Romo. Here we go, Rody.
Doug Freeman from Florida is chiming in. He's saying Ciccone.
Austin Wells.
Austin
Wells. Hey, Seif, we were close. We had a catcher, Dingler, in the mock.
Good pick. Like Wells.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting about Austin Wells, guys. Is one of the questions on him has kind of been, can he catch at the next level? Mm-hmm. And I was talking to a couple of people a couple of days ago who were very convinced that he will stick behind the plate at the next level. I just found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, I said it in our mock. When we were trying to figure out where to put him, like if you think he can catch because of the bat, I think he was a middle first rounder. And if you weren't as confident in it, he probably slips beyond that. Now maybe the Yankees think that he can catch, and they're like, oh well, others didn't think it, so he falls to us. So yeah, we'll take him. But yeah, I like Austin Wells. I haven't seen him as much the last couple of years, but I did see him in high school. Had him ranked pretty highly in high school. I think we had him in the top 200. If not, he was right on the edge. Yeah, pretty good player. And hey, shooter. Maybe tomorrow we hear another Wells go. His brother.
Yeah. His brother Carson Wells could easily go 6'4" runner. I'm watching him he's only 20. It seems like he's young for the grade.
He's eligible sophomore, right?
So he's an eligible sophomore, which they're dressed pretty well. He and his boys got some jackets on, like they're going out on the strip in Vegas. But he's only 20, so I wonder if he'll have to cool a little bit tonight.
It's Vegas. Who cares?
They look sharp though. I'm digging
in Vegas
it.
Stays in Vegas. That is a good-looking suit, though.
I think for Wells, too, I don't think the question on him was if he can catch. I think it was more if he can throw. I didn't see him as a prep. I assume you guys may have. He had close to a 60 arm as a prep from everything I've seen, but it's more 45-ish now. So I think he receives okay, especially if you go to robo umpires. The framing's not going to really matter as much anymore. He blocks fine. I think the biggest thing on him, obviously his biggest tool is his bat for both average and power. But I think the question mark on him was the throwing.
Kendall, I got a tweet for you from Sir John Manuel. Okay, Aaron Sabato went to Carolina and now is drafted by the Twins. Welcome to the Twins Tar Heel Club, Aaron.
There you go. See? John will be happy that I was thinking about him.
I'm sure he will.
This is
Dodgers on the clock now, you guys. I like Nick Lofton here. I think that they were in on Wells also, but I think Lofton would be a name to keep an eye on here. And I know, Kendall, that's a guy you really like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just love Nick Lofton. I think the power's still coming. He hit with some pop at the Shriners College Classic. Really good defender, just an 80 makeup guy, strong arm to first. I'm a huge fan But I would keep an eye on Louisville's Bobby Miller in this range too. He was a guy the last couple of days is starting to get a little bit of buzz that he might rise up the draft boards a little bit.
Well, here we go.
We
I'm
mocked
going with
Clayton Beater,
impact.
but that was really just a shot in the dark at this point.
Well, I'm going with
Bobby
impact
Miller, right-handed
Miller.
pitcher of Louisville.
There you go.
Look at Kendall getting it.
And Kendall, that ties it up in the first round. ACC, SEC, 6-all.
Oh,
There you go.
6 each.
6 each.
Numbers don't lie, Kendall. Numbers don't lie.
So, Seif, did you see Bobby? One of you two, Seif or Aaron, kind of speak on Bobby because I know one of you two guys saw him at Wake.
It's a big arm. It's a big arm. When I saw him at Wake, he did not have the 55 slider that people talk about. I saw a 45 slider. I saw a 45 changeup. So I hate to be the bad look guy. I just didn't see his maximum velocity. I think I saw a couple 6s, maybe tickled a 7, coming into rumors of 99, 100. I just didn't see him at his best. With that said, he battled, he pitched. He's a huge competitor, and he got guys out. So even without his best stuff, he put up a pretty good performance and gets a stacked Wake Forest lineup. So big arm.
And that's similar to the look I got at Ole Miss, the first weekend. I mean, it's, the velocity and the body are what you're buying here. I think, the secondary stuff all needs development. It's inconsistent. I didn't see an average secondary pitch in my look. I saw a lot of 45s on the card, but it's 4 pitches, slider, curveball, changeup, and you'll flash them. There's some potential there, certainly. It needs development and consistency. But you're getting the guy that throws in the high 90s, a big physical power righty at the end of the first round. I think that's pretty good.
Hey, you got to give Louisville. I mean, Vanderbilt rolls guys out, and it's a factory, but Louisville's done a great job as well. They got some real arms. They've produced a ton of first-rounders. Kudos to them because that's 2 again this year.
They are a player development machine.
I'll tell you what.
They do a great job.
They really do, and I'll tell you what, guys. I said he was going to be one of those undervalued guys. That if I would have told you 3 months ago that Bobby Miller would go ahead of C.J. Van Eyck, I think we would all thought we were crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Starter profile.
And Van Eyck would be, I would say, probably second-rounder, Seif.
Miller for me was probably mid-late 2, early 3, somewhere in there. But I mean, there's a ton of college arms that, in my looks, I would prefer over Miller. But Miller's not bad, mid-upper 90s guy,
Sure.
Good body. I'm not real big on the arm action. I think it's more reliever arm action. But again, they've seen him collectively more than we have. So in a great scouting organization, so you can't really question it.
Yeah, it's
this.
easy to get sold in upper 90s. I just, I kind of still go back to Van Eyck in that super regional against LSU last year where he was essentially throwing 2+ pitches and one that was flashing plus pretty consistently. I not only do I have him well ahead of a guy like Bobby Miller, I have him ahead of that Majinski, Tanner Burns crew too.
Yeah. Well, Rody,
it's pick your flavor in that part of the draw. All those arms, you can make a case for anything. Go ahead, Si. Sorry to cut you off.
No, I was just going to try to be funny guy here. I got about 32 tabs open on my computer. I can close one of them for our mock draft now, Rody, so I can shut that one down.
Aaron probably has more than 32. I think it's a requirement for Aaron to have 50 tabs at once.
So, Rody,
of course, the 3 different windows.
7? What do we get, Rody? 7, 8? How many we get?
7. 7 out of 29.
Nice.
6 of the first 11, and then we nailed Bitsko.
We are good. All right, not bad.
So I will be curious how we matched up with our friends Jim Callis, Jonathan Mayo, and Carlos Collazo. Because you can bet I will let them know if I had more than them.
I probably cost us this. I text Callis after we were 6 for 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. I texted him to bust his chops saying, hey, we're ahead of him. I didn't know if we were or not. I just busted chops. And then we went 0 for 11. So
0 for 11.
I'm aware of this one. It's on me.
So Shooter just tweeted out the rundown of picks in the first round. The SEC comes in with 6. The ACC comes in with 6. The Pac-12 with 3, and then the Big 12 and the Big 10 with 1, and then the rest of the conferences 1. So the ACC ends up tying the SEC after the SEC had 4 of the top 6 picks.
And then Rody, 11 high school guys. in the
11 high
first
school
round.
guys in the first round?
Yeah,
Okay.
shorter first round too. Only 29 picks. But that's kind of a middle range. Is that a lower end?
No, I think that's about average. Syfe, maybe you think? I mean, usually we're looking at you 2/3 college anyway, right?
Yeah, 2/3, 1/3. Yep, typically.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that that's about standard to have that many high school guys. So obviously the comp balance round A is going to start soon here. We've got 8 picks in that, starting with Baltimore. So Kierstad obviously being their first pick at 2. You're going to get discount there, so you got some money to play with, probably a fair amount. I'm thinking a high school guy here, Shooter. I mean, and I'm thinking a Jared Kelly, maybe a Carson Montgomery.
I mean, this is kind of the sweet tooth for those right-handed arms coming out of high school. Once you start hitting those comp rounds, 30 through 45, and then even beyond there, I mean, looking at Jared Kelly, you're looking at Tanner Witt here for sure.
Tanner Witt would be
again. We don't have the number in front of us. Kyle Harrison is a top left-hander. I mean, we just went the full first round without a high school left-handed arm getting taken, which doesn't happen very often. But is his number too high? Does he want to go to UCLA and move himself? I mean, UCLA, John Savage proven that you can be drafted in the first round and then get drafted first overall with Garrett Cole. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him as that lefty. What other high school lefties do we have on the board here? Dax Fulton, who's coming off Tommy John, another guy who would have been in first consideration outside of Tommy John, but you could throw him into the mix here. I think probably more second and third round for him.
I think you could hear his name today. I don't think it'd be here with Baltimore, but maybe later in this competitive balance round you might hear him. But certainly early tomorrow, I think second round. If guys like him and he's signable, I think second round is where we hear him. I think if it gets past that, we might be seeing him going to school.
Picks in Jordan Westberg. Wow.
Jordan Westberg.
I was just going to throw him out there. Westberg.
Wow.
They took, what was the Oregon State shortstop a couple years ago in the national championship team? What's that?
Caden Grenier.
Caden Grenier. Took him a couple years ago. We had Westberg kind of right around here.
Yeah.
Did we?
I think it's an interesting pick. I mean, it's a guy that, I like the tail of the tape that Syfe did, breaking down Westberg versus Foscue. It's kind of like, do you want floor or ceiling? Westberg is more of the ceiling pick. It's louder tools, certainly, than Foscue. I think he's got a chance to play shortstop, and maybe – he looks more like a third baseman physically, and maybe as he matures, that's where he winds up. But, it is a really loud athlete, big physical dude who attacks the ball on defense, and he has power and he has speed. He gets up the line good. I think it's probably a plus runner, and which you don't expect for a guy that big. The question is the hit tool, the contact rate. I think that's maybe where there's some risk, Syfe, and I think you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Fiddy. And the other thing, you look back in the first round, they took Kierstad. Now they take Westberg. I like both of those picks independently, but I don't like them together. I just think there's too much swing and miss in each guy. Now, Kierstad only has a 19, almost 20% strikeout rate in college. And that's with a really low strikeout rate in his 15, 16 games this spring. It was like 21, I think.
They're going to move pretty quick here.
So
are they really?
Westberg's farther out there.
Pirates are up.
You got the pick?
Oh, shoot. Carmen Mazinski.
Oh, Mazinski.
Very interesting.
This is a good one here too.
Syfe, can you say that name for us?
What's that, Rose?
Can you say his name for us? The South Carolina sinker baller.
Muchinski.
Majinsky. All right, Syfe, you got it.
That tutored me very well pregame. Yes, thank you, KR.
Aaron, he's a perfect one to talk about in terms of, you were talking about at the top of the show, small sample size. Jarvis is a guy that used the 4 weeks to really jump up boards. Majinsky was a guy that last summer looked like a top 15 pick, but a slow start, and he falls down the board. if he rights the ship, here for Pittsburgh at 31, I mean, you're talking about a top 15 potential pick at 31.
Heck, I mean, compare the performance with some of the other guys we've talked about, the Kate Cavallis of the world, and I mean, even Schuster. I mean, he had a 2.84 ERA in 4 starts this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the peripheral numbers aren't, great, but 22 strikeouts, 8 walks, and 25 innings. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I mean, so it's easy to say he got off to a slow start. Maybe the stuff wasn't as electric. I think that's maybe more what you're speaking about as it was last summer and in the fall. But I mean, I saw him in the fall coming out of the shoot against Georgia Tech in a scrimmage, and it was like 96, 99, and with a wipeout power slider, and he's got a changeup too in there. I mean, and Seif, you saw him in the Cape, but the thing that really impressed in the Cape was also he didn't walk anybody. I mean, the strike to walk ratio was absurd in the Cape League last year for a guy with power stuff. And what kind of stuff did you see? I missed him in the Cape last year. I think maybe one quick look, but what did you see from him in the Cape?
He was 94, 95 with sinking bore, and then he threw the slider, a plus slider, to his glove side. I mean, it was good morning, good night.
Yeah.
But I really like what Pittsburgh has done. Pittsburgh's taken Gonzalez, who fell a couple of spots at 7 overall, and now they took Muchinski, here at 31. And he's probably fallen 20, 25 spots from preseason, and maybe 10 even from where we thought he was going to go tonight. So I really like what the Pikes have done.
We got
Nick
Nick
Lofton to the Royals.
Nick Lofton.
Right.
Nick Lofton from Baylor.
That is a perfect fit for those guys in that organization too.
Yeah, Asa Lacy and Nick Lofton staying in Texas. KR, what do you got?
How about that? You got to like an organization that loves Texas kids. But
Would Baylor and Texas A&M be the same area scout?
Some yes, some no. Some clubs yes, some clubs no.
Okay, could be a good night for him.
They're actually showing his big home runs for the Shriners College Classic. But again, he's got a nice athletic, physical look to him. I think the power is going to come, and he's a really good defender at short. I'm a huge fan of Nick Lofton.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't figured that out.
Well, we have him going over the next best college shortstop, Alika Williams. So Alika probably could be here. Probably, maybe not tonight, but probably early tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was a debate we had yesterday. Was kind of breaking down him versus Alika Williams, specifically defensively, since Alika is such a fluid defender.
Was that Marco Scutero they were lining him up next to on the MLB Network broadcast? There was a shortstop with the Braves. I couldn't quite make out who that was.
The common comp we hear sometimes is Jack Wilson on him, which
okay.
I think that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a solid everyday player. I don't necessarily think he's a big league all-star, but I mean shortstops are always in demand, and he's just so instinctive and fluid. Go ahead, Shooter.
Who did Diamondbacks take their first round?
They took Jarvis.
They took Jarvis? Because I would think that the Padres are going to go after an arm at 34. You got some of the top high school arms still on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right now what's kind of funny is Wilcox, Ciccone, Ginn, and Henry, all sophomore eligible college guys. None of them been sniffed yet. That's just that's crazy. And the guy I'm really missing right now, my favorite, obviously, Chris McMahon from Miami, but Tanner Burns. No Tanner Burns. That guy's a performer in the SEC, has great TrackMan numbers. He's a winner. He's a bulldog. I don't understand. Maybe there might be an issue there we don't know about, but that's one guy missing too here. It could go very quickly.
Well, here's the
somebody today. Yeah, I talked to somebody today that said Burns was in a tough spot. He was kind of falling down boards, but I didn't get the specifics of it.
Slade Ciccone, Diamondbacks.
Here we go.
There's one of them.
Uh-oh.
There you go.
So that group of draft-eligible sophomores was really fascinating heading into this draft. We talked about, of course, Cole Henry and Wilcox, but I mean, Ciccone, again, talking about huge stuff. I mean, a guy that'll show you high 90s once again. Another one of these guys. There's so many of these these power pitchers in the college ranks this year. We just had Bobby Miller and Majinski, and here's another one. Made a nice jump, I think, from freshman year to sophomore year. I didn't get a chance to see him, of course. The season wasn't long enough. But what do you guys feel about this pick?
I think it's a great pick if you can sign him, and I assume you're taking him here because you either feel you can really sign him or you already signed him. But I think it's a great pick. 33 for Slade Ciccone. That's good pickings right there.
Yeah,
yeah, sure.
Starter profile, big time breaking ball.
Yeah. Like the potential of him being a top 15 pick next year is definitely real. Yeah. And to get him at 33, as long as they can sign him, I mean, you can't say more than that.
Yeah, I mean the slot at 33 is 2.2 million. The slot at 15 is 3.8 or 3.9 million.
But you have to think they saved some money with Jarvis at 18, so they're just using that money right now. Because Ciccone's probably a $3 million arm. I'm just speculating, but knowing what we know, Ciccone gets 3, so you gotta save it somewhere. You probably saved a lot of it at 18 with Jarvis, I would assume.
Pick is in for San Diego.
Here we go.
What we got?
Dun, 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 dun.
Robert Hassel at 8 in the first round.
Oh, wow.
Justin Lang.
Ooh,
there it is.
Big arm.
DBU on the board.
Justin Lang. So, I mean, TrackMan, big time numbers on the spin rate, touching triple digits. Was a guy shooter. We saw him at area code games. Was not on the Texas area code games team, but was pitching into the low 90s. Breaking ball does need some development there, but he came out this spring, was stronger, filled out, and was flirting with triple digits early on. Our guy Phil Haig saw him a couple of times, then got him on TrackMan. It is a big-time, explosive fastball.
It gets on you. The metrics shine on him. I mean, it's 100. This was in a bullpen. One of our speakeasy sessions on the side with the TrackMan. But, I mean, I know velocity. There's been a ton of velocity programs. You can build that stuff with the player development, but 100's 100, and not many guys can do that, especially at the high school level. And he's coming from real low 3/4. It's not fun to get in there against. So, yeah. That's a power arm.
How late of a bloomer was Lang?
That's a good question, Rody. I mean, the way we talk about Texans is that they're all going to throw 95 at some point. So they all jump. Everybody throws harder in Texas. The more curious thing for me is that obviously Kelly's on the board. We got Tanner Witt on the board, Kyle Harrison, a ton of the big arms we kind of had ahead of Lang, who was still very high. I'm starting to try to figure out what are their numbers. What are they looking for as we sift down? Because I thought potentially the Padres would have gone after a guy like Kelly there.
Yeah, certainly so, but I do think Lang kind of still fits the Padres' MO in that it is a high school right-handed arm with some risk, considering, oh my goodness, they're showing ESPN the transformation of Lang going 179 pounds to 231. Like, holy, that. Tell you what, guys, that's what happens when you put in some hard work. I'm going to give Justin a call and see what I need to do. But
there's still hope for you, Rody.
Yeah, there's still hope for me yet. But yeah, like it's a risk. It's a risky arm, like Padres MO. Like I was saying, that he flirts with triple digits, but the breaking ball needs development. It is a high school right-hander, so there is that risk element to it. They are the riskiest demographic in the draft, but at the same time, even though it is a high school right-hander, you're talking about a certain level of floor there because of the fastball.
Yeah.
Like how much the fastball can dominate the major league game. If you throw 95 to 100, you're going to get a chance.
Brody, is there a way that we can replay this? What was the old shows on like the Sci-Fi Channel where they'd heckle the movies or whatnot?
Mystery Science Theater.
This, but then we have what the guy signed for, and we start saying, "Oh, this is why this guy was here." Again, we get like the signing bonus, and we talk about what was probably going through minds when it was happening.
Yeah,
just a thought. That's just a shoot around.
blown away by the fact that you worked in a Mystery Science Theater 3000, an MST3K reference in the middle of draft
You
night.
never
Like,
know what's going
that's
to come out of my head.
unbelievable.
That show was interesting.
Yeah. So, but we're throwing up some video of Lang right now. I mean, it's a long projectable frame. It's got the TrackMan numbers on there. He's sitting 99 to 100. Obviously, with that frame, you're getting some extension. I think it was like 7 feet of extension or something close to that. Big time induced vertical break. So you're talking about that ride through the zone, pitching at the top of the zone. And also, I think, Shooter, correct me if I'm wrong, it was also big time like horizontal break. Like it was big time run.
Yeah, the fastball metrics really shine, which you got. I kick it over like throwing 100 in a bullpen. Like it's not easy to do. It's not like adrenaline just comes out of nowhere in the middle of Texas with nobody around except for a TrackMan unit. So I think the breaking ball, it spins right. Talking to Phil Haig, like the spin's there, and this ties in again to the player development. Padres have good player development. They have one of the best farm systems in the game. Hey, he has some aptitude for spin. We're going to teach him. I think there's some stuff we can do with this. I'm sure the scouting department works hand in hand with those guys. So when you get a guy who has that kind of arm talent and then has some aptitude that we can work with and get him enough innings, I think that's why he becomes the 34th pick.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I'm watching that video right now, and the life on that fastball is tremendous. It's really good. So Rockies are up next at 35. I mean, you guys,
Here he is.
like me, have followed the draft. The fact that we're winding down on the night and it's not midnight, I think, is pretty spectacular.
Drew Romo. Oh,
whoa!
boy.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, that's an LSU recruit for those.
Sorry, LSU. Sorry, Tigers. So
Yeah,
Colorado.
Because he's also a Boris guy. So who did the Rockies take early?
Veen.
Oh, they took Veen. So
Romo.
interesting.
Yeah. So the first thing that we'll say about Drew Romo is the defense. Like, I mean, it's a premium defender behind the plate. He's got really soft hands, receives really well, quick footwork, so he can make really good exchanges. He's got a strong arm. He'll back pick guys. He's not afraid, behind the plate shooter.
No, the defense is real. It's I think anybody you talk to, hey, that kid can really defend. I thought there was some swing and miss throughout high school. I thought a bigger year this year would have pushed him higher in that top 20, kind of the type, kind of where Soderstrom was. But switch hitter who can really defend. He's one where, hey, we're not thinking about moving him, kind of like Soderstrom let the bat play. This is a defend guy that you're keeping behind the plate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he certainly is. He's got power. I mean, it's a strong frame. The questions surrounding the bat, and the spring wasn't that great. The couple of weeks that he did play, but I think that was really, we talked about draftitis, guys pressing a little bit, like trying to prove that you can do something instead of letting the game come naturally to you. Probably saw a little bit out of him the first few weeks, but I mean, there's aptitude there. It's a switch hitter, but at the very least, you're talking about a premium defender. So you're looking at a pretty decent floor. Obviously, considering a high schooler, there's certainly risk. But I mean, I like this pick for Colorado, especially considering that they get Veen at 9.
Yeah, they're going for upside for sure. I'm going to predict something right here to make Kendall and Fitty feel better, because the D1 pick in the D1 simul draft was Cole Wilcox. I think this is a perfect spot for Wilcox. They picked Tucker at 23 in the first round. They probably save some money. They're paying somebody here, right? They got to be paying somebody here. And
I think they're going to go. My prediction here is Tanner Burns.
Cleveland.
Burns is a good pick too.
Yeah.
You're getting a premium arm somewhere. This is, I mean, and Cleveland last year, one of the top high school arms fell to them. Here we go. Wow. Indians select. Press the button. Tanner Burns.
Come on, Rob. There we
Good
go.
pick.
Tanner Burns. Called it.
Good pick.
Yeah.
I think this is a safe pick, insofar as he's got a proven track record in college baseball in the best conference. The slider is a swing and miss pitch. I mean, that's kind of 91, 94 comfort zone with a fastball with some life, and changeup's a good pitch too. I mean, it's a legit 3-pitch mix guy. Not the biggest body. There's really not a lot of projection there. I think other guys have more upside, but I think it's kind of a floor pick.
Yeah,
he's definitely kind of the Reed Detmers mold of being kind of a steady Eddie guy. Like what you see is what you get. He's going to be the same guy every time out. I mean, Detmers has better stuff, but Burns has been a consistent producer in the best league in college baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know that. Go ahead, Saif.
I thought he'd go a little higher. His profiles as a starter, plus he has really good TrackMan numbers, really high spin rates, a lot of positives. I thought he'd go a little bit higher than this, but they're definitely getting a good one.
Yeah, ESPN showing a graphic now. Average slider spin rate for him is 25.61, which is in the top 15 of the draft class. And that's always been his pitch. Really, that's his calling card, is that slider. Lots to like about Tanner Burns, definitely. I mean, for me, I think he fits as a, mid to number 3, number 4 starter in the big leagues, and those guys have value.
I agree. And then you look at his number. You want to talk about numbers. His numbers in the SEC, since he's a freshman all the way through, tough to beat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We talked about Nick Lofton earlier against Alika Williams. I would not be very surprised to see Alika go here as the last pick to the Rays.
Kendall's provides pretty good intel tonight, so stay hot.
He's got his phone off to the side.
I was dead wrong on one of mine. So earlier in the draft,
the pick is in.
I tried to weasel out of it by saying, "Oh yeah, I'm hearing it might not be a high school guy." We'll see.
Anyway, Bitsko in the first round. So
Here we go.
I'm imagining
Alika
some
Williams, shortstop.
Yes, there we go.
Stay hot, KR.
I tell you what, I don't think he has the offensive potential of Nick Lofton, specifically power-wise, but, man, he is a really, really impressive defender. I mean, he makes everything look really easy.
Mm-hmm. So Arizona State, again, producing draft picks. We got, 2 guys on day one? Is that right? Because Torkelson, obviously.
Yeah.
Probably 3 more tomorrow.
I was going to say, they got a chance to hear a few guys tomorrow, too, huh?
Workman, Hauver, Dabovich.
Yep.
Who am I missing? There, those 3.
Mm-hmm. I was in Phoenix when everything kind of shut down, hanging out with the Sun Devil staff, and everyone was speculating then what was going to happen with the March Madness and whatever, and they were sitting there saying, "Man, if our season gets canceled with this team, that's going to be a tough break."
Yeah, I mean they had a chance. They had a chance to get to the College World Series. I think a good chance. They were starting to finally figure things out a little bit. And this was a big year for that staff too. They really needed some success on the national level, and I think they would have had it. So I don't doubt they were disappointed. I was talking to Rob Childress at A&M about the ability to go a full season with a guy like Lacey and Zach DeLoach. And obviously they didn't get that. Florida's got a chance to lose Tommy Mace and Jack Letwich from the number 1 ranked team in the country. They didn't get to do that. So a lot of stories like that in college baseball this spring, fellas.
Mm-hmm.
I know college baseball is going to be really fun to watch next spring with all the incoming kids and all these guys likely going back. It'll be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What Shooter, just starting with you, man. Just kind of looking back at the night. We're done with the picks for the night. What are kind of your overall thoughts as you look back at this first day?
I mean, obviously college heavy for the most part, and we talked about the ACC and SEC. The same in the first round. The SEC added 3 more, and the ACC 1. So 9 SEC guys, 7 ACC throughout the top 37 picks. But there were a couple surprises. I think we're going to be paying attention to these signing bonuses. There's certain teams that you'll circle there. And for tomorrow, in the second round, I think if we talked about UT having the biggest risk today, none of their big arms have gone yet. Carson Tucker was a first rounder, but I kind of thought he would be going anyway, but they're still on the board with the chance to get those guys. So the big surprise to me, not a surprise, but Drew Romo not getting drafted. I thought he would have had a chance to get to LSU. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the kid's name at Arizona, Brody?
Nick York.
Nick York.
Nick York.
I mean, that was the biggest surprise. I thought that was a slam dunk. I'm looking at Arizona's recruiting class thinking, hey, that has a chance to be the number one recruiting class next year. Still has a chance to be really good, don't get me wrong, but Nick York not being there is very surprising.
Yeah, indeed. I think the guy that we were banking on them losing was Chase Davis, which, he could still go early tomorrow. It's one of the better power left-handed bats in the high school class. But certainly with York off the board, now the chance that, okay, if they lose Davis too, that could certainly hit them a little bit. But Kendall and Aaron, I got a question coming in here asking, when will Bryce Elder get drafted? What do you guys think on that?
My feeling on Bryce is like probably mid to late second round. I mean, he might drop to the third. The thing about Bryce, again, it kind of goes back to Tanner Burns, and I know Bryce is a little bit of a step down from a TrackMan standpoint to a guy like Burns, but Elder is a really strong guy, a strong lower half. He's consistently 90, 93 up to 94. He does not deviate from that with his fastball. The cutter's a really nice pitch. He can dump that changeup in there. I'm a huge Bryce Elder fan. He has been a very, very consistent guy during his time at UT. And I actually got to give PBR's Phil Haig a lot of credit with Bryce Elder. Phil Haig is the reason why Bryce Elder is who he is today. And so that's my feeling on Elder. I don't know if Fit disagrees on that, but I would say mid to late second, maybe early third, but I don't think it's any later than that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's kind of in that Tanner Burns mold. So I would say he's coming. I mean, there's some interesting arms, of course, still on the board that we thought had a chance to go at the end of day one. Chris McMahon, I think, will be one of the first picks tomorrow, I would have to imagine. I don't know what's going to happen with those two eligible sophomores we keep talking about, Wilcox and Henry, and then there's JT Ginn, of course. There's Kevin Abel, the kind of wild card guys coming. In Abel's case, coming off injury. In Ginn's case, he just had surgery this spring. But those are some real interesting wild cards. Is there a chance these guys could wind up going back to school? If now that they haven't gone in the first round, that will be something to monitor. But Logan Allen's still on the board, a polished lefty from FIU, kind of like your Reed Detmers light, not as big as Detmers, but a similar kind of pitchability lefty that I think will go early tomorrow. And Dylan Dingler's still out there, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, he's still out there. Yeah, Chris McMahon, JT Ginn.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it right now. So the draft board, best available, which is presented by Big League Chew, by the way, is the top guys are Kyle Harrison, Jared Kelly, Carson Montgomery. So right off the bat, you got 3 high school arms. And then you got that run of college pitching. Cole Wilcox, JT Ginn, Chris McMahon, Cole Henry, Logan Allen. And then Dylan Dingler. Got Cam Brown and Alex Santos, Dax Fulton, some high school arms again. A lot of pitching in this draft class. And then we go C.J. Van Eyck out of Florida State, Casey Martin, Arkansas, Tommy Mace, Daniel Cabrera, Ben Hernandez, Jared Jones, and Clayton Beater. So those are the guys that are best available, and that rounds out guys that were in our top 50. So I guess let's go around the room real quick. Maybe make some predictions. Tigers are back on the clock for tomorrow. Spencer Torkelson today. They have an extra pick, so there's some money there. Not quite as much as Baltimore, but they got some money to play with. Tigers, second round. Who you got going off the board? Let's start with Shooter Hunt.
Sorry, I'm still figuring out slot or how money's breaking down. The Orioles have a ton of money to play with, so I'm more worried about the Orioles pick. The Tigers, come back to me. Sorry, I was figuring out who's got money to spend.
Unbelievable. Aaron Fitt.
I like Chris McMahon. I think they got a great power bat. I think they come back and get a power arm. We know they like those ACC, SEC guys. And I think McMahon would be a steal at pick 38.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Seif?
Well, Fit picked my pocket on that one, so I'm going to go with Dylan Dingler. I think Dingler, catcher, would really complement what they already did at 1-1. So starting to build a nucleus of a pretty solid starting 9 on the diamond.
Mm-hmm. Kendall?
Yeah, I'm going to go with C.J. Van Eyck. I'm going to stay in the state of Florida. I'm going to go with C.J. Van Eyck.
Okay. It's a good one. Shooter, are you ready now?
Yeah, McMahon. I'll go with McMahon.
Okay. They got Torkelson 1-1. I think they're going to lean high school and go some risk upside projection. I'm going to go pitcher, West Coast, California, Jared Jones.
Okay.
Raise an eyebrow there, Shooter.
Was there only one high school pitcher taken?
Bitsko.
Oh, Bitsko. I forgot about Bitsko, too.
Yeah.
Bitsko and Abel. Yeah.
Bitsko and Abel, yeah.
There were 11. We predicted 12 high school guys in the first 30 picks. There were 11, and 13 of the 39 picks overall were high school. So, or 13 of the 37, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
There were also 11 high school guys in the first round last year.
I think there were 10. 10 of the.
Oh, was it 10?
10 of 30. Yeah, 10 of the first 30.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Shooter, how'd the SEC ACC matchup go? How'd those numbers tally out?
I just tweeted it out. I said I could put if you add
SEC, ACC 6,
ACC 7 because they threw in somebody in the
Miller.
Maybe it was Miller. No.
Yeah.
Ciccone at 33.
Ciccone went in the
that's
extra
right.
round.
Yeah.
But if you add the SEC with 14 players taken, ACC with 9, PAC with 7, Big 12 with 4, Big 10 with 1, and all the other conferences with 2. So one of each. Justin Lang was a Dallas Baptist recruit. I tell you, Dallas Baptist gets some real power arms. They had Noah Syndergaard. They roll out some dudes.
Mm-hmm. They have Caraway this year, who's got a big fastball. So let's go. You guys, and I think one of these is obvious with Nick York. So let's take him off the table. Outside of Nick York to the Red Sox, let's go around the room and give us like kind of your eyebrow raising, kind of big surprise for the night. And Seif, we'll start with you on that one.
Well, you called me out on one of them, but I'm gonna go to the other one that I was surprised with Schuster to Atlanta. Again, like him, not sure if I 25th overall like him, just because of all the other so many good college arms ahead of him. It's not like I don't like him, but he would be Schuster from from Wake Forest would probably be that one guy.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. All right, who is the guy that I called you out on?
I forget who you texted me about when I said good for him.
Oh. Kendall, who's your surprise today?
I think for me, for the simple fact that so many people had Austin Martin going number 2 overall, I think with Heston going number 2 and Max Meyer going ahead of Asa Lacy, I was actually a little surprised by that. Again, I think we talked so much about this earlier. There's nothing wrong with those picks, but I thought it was just a little bit of a surprise, especially Meyer going ahead of Lacy. I was a little surprised by that one, but otherwise, it would have to be Nick York, even though he's off the board.
Yeah.
No.
Aaron, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean those are surprises really. I mean I think everything else was fairly according to script, I would say, for the most part. But if you wanted to classify a reach based on the rankings, I mean it would be York, of course, and Schuster. But as I said, I kind of talked myself into Schuster as a first round pick when I started talking about it. And it's an athletic power lefty that just doesn't have the track record of performance that a lot of these other guys have. That's maybe the thing that made it such a surprise to me. But you can really talk yourself into it if you believe in the talent. And the same goes for Kerstad. I mean, at number 2, I get that nobody really thought he would go that high, but why not? I mean, once you start talking about it, you're like, okay, yeah, there's swing and miss, but everybody swings and miss. It's Major League Baseball now. That's the way the game has gone. The power is what you're buying. And, I mean, the power is maybe second to torque. You can make a case that he's got more raw power than torque. I don't know if I would make that case, but I mean, it's a discussion worth having. It's one of the best power bats in the draft.
Mm-hmm. Shooter, did you give yours already?
No, you can come to me.
Go for it.
I'll go with Vince. And it's not a surprise because of the talent, but more so, hey, this is a kid not a lot of people had anything on. He was a 21 who reclassed at 20, didn't have a spring season. It's a tough pick to make when you don't have that kind of intel, especially in this draft, which is leaning heavy college right now because they can kind of look at the results and more of the statistics. This is a PA kid, not a lot of innings. That was probably the surprise for me.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, I'm gonna go Soderstrom, lasting as long as he did. I thought he was certainly a chance to be close to not top 10, but like in that 10 to 15 range. Thought he was a slam dunk top 20. Getting to 26 is a little bit of a surprise. 26. Yeah, to the A's. 26 to the A's. Yep. Which I guess side note, sometimes this is of interest. Soderstrom drafted by the A's. He was on the A's team at the area code games. So sometimes there's a little bit of a line to draw with that because, maybe you get a little bit more up close and personal with the kid, playing for that team. So I know that's always a point taken. So we talk about surprises. We'll go around the room one more time and then we'll sign off here. But what was your favorite pick where you were like, I love that pick? It's a great pick. Maybe you guys undervalued, but you like it. Starting with Aaron.
Well, I mean, I won't give you my obvious answer, which is Bryce Jarvis. I was delighted to see Bryce Jarvis go in the first round at number 18. But other than that, I mean, I thought honestly Sabato was a really interesting pick at 27, sticking on Tobacco Road. I don't know that I necessarily thought he would sneak in the first round. I thought there was a chance of it, but I mean, again, I just think that power tool is obviously in so much demand, and he's got it, boy. I mean, it's really special there. So, and it plays all fields. So yeah, I like that pick. I thought it was a neat pick for the Twins.
Excellent. Shooter, what do you got?
I mean, there were a bunch. I like the Sabato choice there, but Foscue going to the Rangers. We talked about it while the season was still going on. I would bring it up each week where, hey, this guy can really hit. He's a professional hitter in the box, and he protected that lineup for Mississippi State. Westberg hit in front of him. Tanner Allen hit in front of him. Jake Mangum hit in front of him. He was the protection of that lineup for 2 years. And I just thought it was a really good pick. And he was not in that talk for a long time. And it was like kind of the last 2 days, like, oh, wow, guys really like him. So good pick there.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Kendall.
I think the one for me would be Cavalli to the Nationals at 22. I mean, I think Aaron brought up a good point earlier that, his production wasn't great. His ERA was a little high, had some command issues. But again, I'm a full believer in this guy. Like, I think his secondary stuff is going to continue to develop. I think he will go kind of down the Lacy path where his command will figure that out. And he certainly has that power fastball and that frame that you love to see in a big time prospect. So I think the Nationals, when they look back in 3 or 4 years, I think they're going to be pretty happy with this pick.
Mm-hmm. Saif.
I think the steal of the draft was, and it just fell to him, was Austin Martin to Toronto. I mean, I really like Lacy to get Asa Lacy 4th overall was a steal, but I thought Austin Martin 5th was an even bigger steal. So those two, but in particular Martin.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And I'm gonna go with Ed Howard, the Chicago Cubs. Not only a hometown kid, but I felt like the profile he profiles as a top 10 guy. I think with a spring, he would have been able to kind of prove it with the bat. He was going to be my breakout pick for the National High School Invitational, and Cary had that gone on. Obviously, the season got canceled, so I love that pick for the Cubs. I think there's tremendous value there. So, but what do you think, guys? Do it again tomorrow?
I'll be there.
All right, I guess so.
Excellent.
You're on, Rody.
Awesome. Well, let's do it. So tomorrow, coverage begins at 5 o'clock, so we'll be on there at 5 o'clock. We'll talk a little bit in the beginning, just kind of get things primed, and then the picks will roll in. Kendall, you said they're going, 2 minutes between picks for rounds 2 through 5?
2 minutes between picks tomorrow.
Nice, I like it. So we'll roll pretty well through rounds 2 through 5 and give you guys the analysis. But we appreciate everybody joining in tonight. We look forward to doing it again tomorrow. But for Aaron Fitt, Kendall Rogers, Shooter Hunt, David Seifert, I'm Nathan Rohde. This was Draft HQ Live, and until next time, we'll see you guys